welcome to another episode of XenoChat. I am one of the hosts, Tyler, along with Justin.
What's up, everyone?
Alright, so we have a roundtable discussion on the latest Xenoblade DLC, Future Redeemed, but first let's talk about who's at this table. First up we have David.
Hello.
We have B.
Howdy.
Nick.
Yo.
And we have Chris returning.
Hello.
Okay. Alright, so it's been a few weeks now. Had to get through the post DLC depression, but now we're here to all talk about it. So, where do we start?
That is a very loaded question. Where do we start?
This is why we wrote a document.
This is true.
So I added this last minute, but did we like it? Did everyone here like it?
No!
Garbage. Why did I pay $30 for that? Like, oh my god.
I loved it.
No, that was, I keep saying this, and people keep saying this, and I do think some people are using the term a bit dramatically. I am low-key calling it peak fiction, especially in terms of this series. I have never been this impressed with simply a DLC package.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. Playing, like, multiple DLCs of various different games, this was beautiful. Beautiful.
Well, that didn't sound sarcastic.
I think it blew Torna out of the water, to be honest, Steven. Which
I think so too.
Save.
I think so too.
1,000%.
I definitely enjoyed this more than Torna, and Torna is a game that I had very mixed feelings on when it came out, and then I kind of warmed up to it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
This one, I for the most part enjoyed it. There's things I didn't like. We'll get into that later, but overall, I think the DLCs have been pretty strong. Honestly, the season passes for both this game and Xenoblade 2 have been pretty solid. I think they're like some of the few season passes that truly feel worth it to me. You can get a lot of mileage out of it.
There's really not a lot. There's really not much I can think of that I didn't like about this DLC. Although I think I'm just easier to please with this stuff than some. Like I like Xenoblade Chronicles. Yeah. I mean, it's my fave.
Yeah, I definitely think that. And again, we're going to get into this later. I might be a bit more critical about certain things, and I think I have some reasons for that. But for the most part, I did enjoy this. I think, like, as far as gameplay goes, this very much is one of the best of the franchise. Like, it plays super well. I think the exploration is awesome in this one. Like, this is the first time where I really feel motivated to go out and 100%. I did all the side quests. Like,
yeah, I'm close, and yeah, that's probably the most I've tried to get that far.
Well,
just from exploring and going, just all the systems felt so good this time around.
The fact that you all want to go back, and me too. Like, I just finished playing the DLC on the weekend, and I want to go back and complete everything. Like, I want more from this, which I did not get on the core game.
And I think, I was gonna say, and I think they struck a really nice balance. Like, it is obviously a much shorter experience than any of the other Xenoblades.
I think it's longer than Torna, to be honest.
I think it's longer than Torna, but I also do extra stuff.
I think yeah, you know what? I'm trying to think what my Torna time was.
Okay, I'll put it this way. I don't think it's longer than Torna base game, but I think the community stuff takes a little bit longer than
Torna.
The
difference is you don't have to do it.
Yeah, you don't have to do the community this time. You can do the community, and you'll learn some cool stuff if you do the community.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
It's longer in terms of amount of content. However, the amount of required content is like a fourth, which is a huge step in the right direction. Yeah. And usually, so I'm going to be honest, I didn't necessarily speed through this game, but I kind of made my way to credits. I did exploration as felt necessary, but I saved side quests for like my New Game Plus run. And even just doing that, this game motivated me so much to run around and explore every nook and cranny in a way that none of these games have done. Yes. I love Xenoblade, but not a single one of these games have motivated me to explore because I want to explore besides X. Which is funny, because this game actually kind of handles its, like, completion checklist system, kind of like Frontier Nav, but, like, redone a little bit.
Yeah, it feels very arcadey.
It does some stuff that I wish X had done. Yes.
What I was going to say is, I like that this game is a little bit shorter, but at the same time, it still feels substantial. Mm-hmm. And I guess because of its brevity, I'm more motivated to come back to this and be like, all right, let me go ahead and try to complete the Collectopedia. I don't have to worry about a giant one. This is a lot more condensed, and I could complete this pretty quickly. And it was really fun to do that. It was really fun to do that. Find all the secret areas, find all the affinity scenes.
Dude, the feedback loop of affinity points is perfect in this game. That and
100%.
Yes.
I know it wouldn't work for. I don't feel like it would work to the same degree for a full-size Xenoblade game in some ways, but finding the unlock kits was one of my favorite things. I loved how that fit into exploration.
And this is what I'm trying to get at. I think this game's brevity works in its favor because of those systems. Like you just said, that probably wouldn't work as well in a mainline base game, but in a shorter 20 to 25 hour DLC, absolutely.
No, I'm going to comment on that. Monolith, y'all better do something like this going forward. And I know I have my one-on-ones with y'all a lot on these episodes. I get very close to the mic. I tell y'all what I want. I don't care. Y'all find a way to make this work for a main game because it works better than anything else we've had. And I don't think it would be too bad of a change. I think if they can make this work in such a small expansion while still focusing so much on story and what we need, I don't think they couldn't rework the system. I mean, this is Monolith we're talking about. This is the Superman studio of Nintendo. They can find a way. And I think making not necessarily this specific approach, as a copy it from one game to the other, like Community. Because I'm going to be honest, I don't think Community should have been transferred over. I think a normal affinity chart would have worked, and I think that Community didn't add much that a community chart would, or that a affinity chart would have done the same. But if this were to be added into every single game going forward, I think you'd have a lot more people actually caring to explore. Because that's not exactly a minor opinion. That seems to be a pretty common opinion, that they go for the story, for the bosses, and for the quests, but the exploration is not what they're there for.
I mean, yeah, it probably is. I definitely love the exploration, and whatever they do with the next one, I want them to tie that exploration in as well as they did in this DLC.
I also think what works about the community in this one is each community has a very specific requirement, and I think those specific requirements kind of tell you a little bit about each of the characters as well. So it helps to flesh them out, and that's why I say I think it just works better for a smaller thing, because if we had a community for, let's say, an entire game, and you have to have all those NPCs in there and have to fit in every single one of those quests, I could see that quickly becoming very overwhelming. But I think it works here because it is a smaller game. There aren't as many NPCs to worry about.
The checklist was pretty nice. Oh, I was just going to say the checklist on the community thing was pretty nice, just to know that you weren't missing anything. But I honestly didn't even need to look at it very often at all. I every once in a while I'd be like, oh yeah, I did all this with this character, maybe I'll see if I need to do anything else with them, and it'll be like, oh no, I've got just talk to them a few more times.
That being said,
that was nice.
Now that I think about it, I guess this could kind of go to Chris's point. One way they could make that work in a full game is basically have each town have its own separate community.
Yes.
And I guess that's probably the way to make it work if they were to do it in a base game. So I could see that potentially working.
Here's my thing. I think there's one very easy solution that makes Community work for a full game. It would make Community work here on forward, and Future Connected, or not Future Connected, same game. Future Redeemed basically did the same thing. You just don't require Community to be completed. And look how much better it already is. If you just have it as a system that builds up and it's more for world... Because really, at its heart, Community is just a more fleshed out affinity chart. It has some things that are taken out, but at its core, it's just a different approach of that. So they can do it just fine. It's the gating that people had issue with. And look how much happier people are about the system. I don't think it needed to be in Future Redeemed, but I won't deny. I think it's a million times better than the Torna version.
Yes.
And I was a day one Torna defender. I was in the trenches. I was saying, no, y'all just need to do the side quests. Do the side quests as you go. No, this is better. This is a million times better.
I was gonna do them either way, in Torna, but and I did in this one. I did finish all the community, and it does unlock an extra quest, which honestly isn't that big, but it does contain some information that while not that big of a thing to say, it's not that big of a stretch to guess yourself this information, but it does deal with, oh yeah, this is the connection to how they become the founders of the city, of the new city. So, yeah, there is that.
Yeah, which I did ask on our server. That question. He said, "Oh yeah, did you play that last quest?" I said, "No," but now that makes sense.
Yeah.
I still need to play that last quest.
Should I go ahead and go into what that last quest is, since I'm apparently one of the few people that played it here so far?
I mean,
I'm fine with it.
It's like I said, it's nothing big, but if you don't want me to get into it, it's
go for it, Nick.
Basically, there are so the Liberators in Colony 9, they have their people. They have some people in the city there helping them, and Matthew, of course, being one of them, and they're helping the Liberators throughout the game. And they have some broken down city technology there. One's a mech and one is like a ship. And Matthew is talking to what is that guy's name? That's his friend, the big bulky guy that is there.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
You know who you're talking about, Milo or something? Mm-hmm. Was that it?
I don't think that's the same, but I know who you're talking about.
You know who I'm talking about. No. It was anyway. He's an NPC, but he's a prominent NPC. He knows Matthew, and they're talking about, oh, we'd like to fix these up, but it'd take a lot of work. And Matthew just why don't we just ask people around here? And Shulk says something like, well, I mean, it's not really part of our cause. It's a city issue, but it's if you want to ask around, there's nothing wrong with that. And so, because you've built up the community and helped the Liberators through all this, you end up going around the city talking to everyone about it, and everybody just unanimously agrees to help you fix those things up. And so what it suggests whenever you get everybody working on this project is that it's if somebody says something about, oh, if something happens to Colony 9, now we have an escape route to the city. And in the end, it's just oh yeah, we have a vehicle between us and the city.
Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of...
Are you telling me I killed everyone by not doing the quest?
No.
Maybe. No, I mean, I did it post-game, so it doesn't matter.
I mean, not to jump ahead, but during the ending, you see them fly off.
No, I know, yeah.
You see them fly off.
Which this kind of helps...
As Origin falls where the fucking colony...
Because when I saw that part, I was like, well, how'd they know that they had to leave at that specific time?
That's the missing link.
Yeah. So, okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Like I said, it's a very small missing link, but it's there.
So it is there. The moral of the story is to do that quest.
Yeah. It's also kind of cool to do that quest post-game, because then, I mean, spoiler alert, because then Nile could be with you.
Yep.
And she could be involved in it too.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of cool to do that.
Well, that's cool.
We kind of jumped ahead there, but I'm kind of glad we segued into that there.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, go on, it's Chris. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, not gonna lie, I got Nile back for the final boss, and I didn't know you could turn around. There's a portal, so you can keep doing content. So I truly just went forward. I thought Nile was New Game Plus or post credits or something, and apparently you can do all the content the game with her. So, fun fact for our viewers: turn around, take the portal, go finish side quests. Finish side quests.
Yep.
Definitely thought about it, but it doesn't. You can still do all that stuff post game too.
Oh yeah.
Which you still have to turn around and go back through the portal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Exactly. You have to regardless. So
speaking of which, I hate that they cut out the section between that portal and Prison Island.
I know.
I was like, I want to go back over there.
I actually made a save for that part.
Wait, hold on. Like the Prison Island?
No.
You can't go back?
No, the world before. You can't go back to that.
The art.
Wait, you can?
Nope.
No. Oh, okay.
Now I'm mad. Garbage DLC. Absolutely fucking garbage.
That's a tease. That is a hell of... I mean, there's not much to look at there, technically. It's a very small stretch of place to walk around. I tried walking to the back end of it, and it cuts you off pretty fast, but... Yeah.
Well, before we go into that, David, what did you think of the DLC?
Oh, sorry, I was just listening to everyone's thoughts.
You're okay.
It was good. I don't know. Honestly, I have a lot of like bigger thoughts about it and like its implications, I guess. But I didn't dislike it, but I feel like maybe it didn't answer some of the things that I wanted in the game. But yeah, I thought it was good.
Sounds like a good segue to a next topic.
Wow, implications is the word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Xenoblade 3 is the game of inferring.
I feel like that's the big thing that splits so many people in like a lot of these. It's just like these people, I hate this, it doesn't explain this, and me, I'm just sitting here like, oh man, that's juicy. I love that. I love this shit. Give me more of that. I want to think about this.
Nick's over in the corner rubbing his hands together.
I literally am rubbing my hands together thinking about what we're going to talk about.
See, I don't mind the implication, like all the inferring we gotta do and all that good stuff. What I don't like about it, especially in both this game and just Xenoblade 3 as a whole, is they're very inconsistent about what they're going to be specific about and what they're going to leave up in the air. And sometimes it's just stupid. Like, when this game was coming out, and they showed that full-on render of Alvis, and they're like, who's this mysterious person? Question mark. It's just like, bro, it's fucking Alvis. And literally, the second line of the game is, Alvis! Like, shut the fuck up. Why does that have to be a mystery?
Monolith marketing needs some better people.
Come on with that.
I will say, on that one, I can't believe I'm defending them, because I also think it's stupid. It's not Alvis, and they couldn't have said who it was, so I understand, but it's still stupid. Don't show
It's so stupid. They could have just called him. Yeah, they could have just called him Alpha in marketing. That would have been fine.
Well, honestly, I think that would be worse, though, to be entirely honest, because that gives away a lot. For people who dig into things, and people saw the name Alpha coming back when like Xenoblade 3 came out, that would have given a little too much away for certain people, so I understand why they didn't. But why have Alvis in the trailer? I think A would have satisfied that just fine, and then you see Alvis, it's like, whoa!
Yeah.
That would have been a cool surprise!
It's like having a render of Ganon and being like, who's that?
And like, I guess what bothers me is...
Who's this?
And I guess what bothers me is, like, they didn't even gray out the render. No, it is a full body render.
But hang on, they did. His melanin is gone, and he does look great. They did gray it out.
Fine, they grade him out that way. That's right. But oh my goodness!
Listen, you can't be picky. Come on.
Yeah, it's.
I will say one of the things I typically in Xenoblade 3, mostly the base game, because there's a lot of like little things that explain why things are in the game and why things aren't answered, like Colony Zero going out of its way to fuck shit up and so on and so on. But one that bugs me to absolute hell. If Nia is supposed to be Mio's child, and it's relatively heavily implied with everything except saying, I am your mother, which I'm fine with. Well, did I say it wrong? You know what I'm trying to say.
You said Nia is supposed to be Mio. Oh wait, you did say it right. You said it right. My bad. I thought you said mom, and I was thinking, oh, kid, and
no, like that's one of the things that's bothered me.
No, I'm not even done. It gets worse. So we do all of that, and I would have been fine. I actually kind of prefer when things dance around nearly enough information to infer where it's basically canon, but they aren't saying it's canon, so you can like discuss it. However, if we have Mio, our deuteragonist, with Nia as mom, what the fuck is up with Noah? Because we have Melia. We have Melia with no name child.
Yeah.
Why is he the inheritor? Why do we have no mention of... That's my issue. We have so many things where it's obvious something should have been here and it's not, and I'd rather have inferences than nothing. Like, can y'all decide?
I was just thinking about that the other day, too. Like, we genuinely don't know, like, where Noah comes from.
And
to extend on that, we also don't know who Matthew and Niall's parents are.
Well,
I'm okay with that.
We don't know. I mean, I don't think that's really necessary information.
It's not as necessary, but like the point I'm trying to make is they're so deliberate with not saying anything regarding like familial ties, and it gets like really obnoxious. And this DLC in particular, it's so frustrating that. To get into something later on, like they'll do a very specific name drop later on in the game, but Rex cannot say Zeke's name in front of Linka.
Not
Rex
even in
is not allowed to say Zeke. but they can name drop someone very specific that we're going to get into later.
Yeah.
It's just like, why?
Can I ask a proposal just to see if it would make you feel any better? Because I honestly wonder if the other solution would have been worse. Would you have been more mad if we got Zeke name dropped and nothing else at all? Because I feel like it sadly would have been one or the other because of the approach they took with this game, and I don't think it's good.
Yeah, it shouldn't be one or the other. We should get both. Yeah. But you know what? Like,
or none. I'd honestly have rather had none than this in some ways.
Yeah, it would have been safer to just do none. But it's just like, it's so stupid. I don't know. I personally would have had no problem with them just telling us, yeah, they're their kids, whatever. That would have been fine. I would have even questioned it.
I mean, I feel like even the clear drop that Nicole is Shulk's kid is just in something you can totally miss because it's an affinity like thing.
Wait, they actually say it?
He said Shulk in an affinity in the affinity scene on top of the hill over Colony 9 at the park.
Yeah. Okay.
He says he said he doesn't even imply it. He pretty much straight up says Shulk is like, if it weren't for her, I wouldn't be here today, and for that matter, you wouldn't be here either. And Nicole's like, what? And it's like, how much more obvious can you get?
I truly thought that, and this shows you how fine I was with what I thought the approach was. I thought that we made it to the end of the game, and maybe, at most, either one, they infer, sorry, spoilers, as the thingy go and the lights go, I know, the lights go, I figured either they were, one, inferring because they had such a close connection, or two, they interlinked. I figured they saw their memories, and it just got connected at that point, and they felt no need to say it. But that's another case of inferring versus kind of being told. So
I was like, while I was a little bothered that they didn't straight up tell Glimmer and Nicole that they were their children, I get it because they don't know the concept of it.
Yeah.
That's true. So I will say this.
They'd be like, "You're my father? What the fuck's that mean?"
Hold on. So I'm gonna get to this. I am gonna think about I've been doing a lot of thinking about that. Because in the server, believe me, I was very vocal about how much this has been bothering me. As far as Glimmer and Nicole go, I can kind of get why they wouldn't outright tell them, in the sense that they are in the cycle, and technically speaking, they're not their kids, but rather an instance of them in the cycle.
See, I kind of wondered about that because they could have been the clone of that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so they wouldn't necessarily be their kids.
But
Link, on the other hand, exists outside of the cycle, so that's where it's just like, okay, well, you could have said it there.
That gets into the fucky wucky origin selective bullshit.
Yeah. Alright.
And that's where it's like,
also,
were they actually just their kids, or was that the clone of their kids? Because who knows what the fuck Origin did with that. Anyway, we'll get into that later.
I was going to say, to not be negative about it, that affinity scene that Nick was talking about is particularly cute because Shulk tells Nicole that he'll make him a sandwich with herbs and spices, and that's exactly what Fiora made for him. So I thought that was super adorable.
Yeah, it was wholesome.
My only complaint on this topic, I don't mind not getting the full direct confirmation, especially not with Glimmer. However, why couldn't y'all nip the Dirk theories in the bud so I don't have to think that Dirk possibly Mitsuda's child for the rest of my life?
I don't want that to be either.
Yeah,
I don't want
that.
And
also,
confirm or deconfirm.
Also, it's just what's also really jarring about it is they want us to believe that Rex has 3 kids because of that picture, right? We really don't get much about that picture, other than, I guess, Glimmer and, I guess, technically Mio existing. But, Rex never acknowledges the other kids.
I mean, to be honest, grim answer, they could have died. I mean, it was a war.
Yeah.
Things did happen.
But, Rex never acknowledges that he had other kids.
They should have said something.
Well, plus, there is also the potential that Rex and Shulk are kind of pulled out of time in the first place, so they could have died of old age, for all we know.
It's not even potential. They basically... There's a little discussion that kind of explains it, but instead of it being them pulled out of it or anything, basically they just continue to exist as is and stopped aging. So it's less that they were even recreated or anything like that. They're literally as they were in All Rest and Bionis, just stopped aging. Though it's weird. They don't age, but they kind of like do age because they look slightly like maybe they're war-torn more than aged.
But
I'm wondering if that was like roughly the age they were preserved from whenever all this shit started with the anyway.
But another aspect of it is that I don't think maybe I'm wrong on this, but I'm not sure if Shulk or Rex ever got to see Nickel, Glimmer, we're going to call them that for now. I ever got to see their kids actually grow up. I think the implication is that this is the first time they're seeing them at the end, at least for Glimmer, at the end of their 10-year period. So I think the implication is that this is the first time they're seeing them as like adults, quote unquote.
Yeah, it's been a while for sure.
So we don't know what happened to them. They could have died.
Oh wait,
young,
I
or
can
maybe...
talk on that. I have my little theory that I gave you because we talked about like the timeline and stuff like that. So
yeah.
We know since Mio is what is she? She's 19, turning 20 in the game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that she is older than Noah. Typically, while the cycle is the cycle, and it just seems like the age kind of resets. With what we know, we're able to take that basic information, and if we are assuming, which makes the most sense that Melia's coronation, or not Melia's coronation, Melia's entire event that's going on at the beginning of the game is the 100th anniversary, which is like quintessential, all that jazz. Typically in royalty, 100 years is a big deal, so on and so on. That would require, one, that's 12 years from Xenoblade, because she's, 88 at the end of Future Connected, I think? Something like that?
I thought she was... Wait, was she?
Isn't she 88 in the base game?
That's what I was thinking.
Then even less time. So that means they got... let me not say that. I was going to say they got busy fast, but I don't want to say that.
Yeah, so Melia was 88, I'm pretty sure, in the base games, and I'm like, one.
Oh, so
and then Future Connected, Future Connected's a year later, so 89.
Yeah.
Well, then that's even weirder, because this is a different discussion. Future Connected messes up the timeline more, because it's a year later, not even from the credits. It's like a year later from, like, Zanza, and then never mind. Giant thing. This is not just Xenoblade 3.
Yeah, that's, Future Connected gets things really confusing with certain
timeline is a big issue I have with this game. It has been driving me insane.
I'm sorry, that's what I was explaining. I got distracted.
Yeah, go for it.
The way I understand is basically because of that information is Xenoblade 1 and 2 had ended. Future Connected and all that jazz went on. And over from the credits, about 10 to 13 years, we're just going to guesstimate because we don't have specific numbers, so on and so on. Mio and all of them were born. I'm assuming, since they were born at the same time, that the oldest that they would have seen, Glimmer and Nico respectively, would have been about 10 or 11 years old.
Yeah.
So that also makes sense for that. But then, it gets all fucky after that. Specifically, and I don't necessarily mind it, Ionios happens in an instance. Time doesn't necessarily matter. I get it. I've heard all the excuses. I don't agree, but I've heard all the excuses. However...
I was going to say, what I wonder about Ionios is how long did it take for Ionios to actually come to where it's at, I guess.
Oh, I say instant, to be entirely honest.
It's instant?
After the credits? After the credits, absolutely. Absolutely.
After the credits of, like, what?
No, after what we saw in Future Redeemed.
Oh, no, yeah. Oh. No, I meant, like, how did Ionios come to be? Like, how long did it take those two worlds to fuse? That's what I meant.
Oh, no, that... Well, do you mean, like, from Origin activating until Ionios, or do you mean, like, from the end of the credits until Ionios? Because technically it happens before that.
Well, I imagine they spend several years working on Origin in the first place. But
in terms of the actual fusion, I took it as immediate, and, conduit power is involved. They can do whatever the fuck they want, basically. Especially now that we know it's the conduit involved.
Well, yeah, but I took it as more gradual than that because of my whole theory around the fog in the first place.
So I always this is
I didn't read it that way at all.
The fog is another thing that's been bugging me, because I was thinking that all of this was happening sometime after Future Connected specifically.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, yes, of course, but
so I was thinking. So this is where I get. So at first I thought, so the worlds merge at the end of Xenoblade 2, but I guess that's not true because
1 and 2 both roughly.
Yeah, 1 and 2, because 1 and 2 is supposed to end at the same time.
Yeah.
I believe so. They're supposed to end at the same time, I believe.
No, they're definitely.
And then
it's like inferred. It's one of those things where it's not confirmed, but it's basic.
Let Justin talk.
Yeah. So I believe 1 and 2 end at the same time, and then Future Connected is happening. But in Future Connected, I don't believe the worlds had merged by that point. But it seemed like Xenoblade 2 implied that they were.
Wait, how? Why do you say that? Why would
because of the world because of the way the world looked at the end of Xenoblade 2.
But remember how the world looks throughout Xenoblade 2, though, because all that we see of Allrest is a giant cloud sea or what is immediately around the world tree. So basically, we see the world tree has gone away, all the Titans are doing their own thing, so everything is going to look like that. Mm-hmm. However, I can't fucking explain the fusing of the Titans even to this day.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's Ionios, but I can't explain
I don't know. It's not Ionios yet, but it's the worlds coming together, because the worlds are coming together, and then they make Origin to save everybody from dying from that.
I don't think that the worlds are coming together immediately at the end of Xenoblade 2.
I mean, they can't. They absolutely cannot.
Yeah, it's like the cloud sea partially dissipated.
Right, so it would have to be after Xenoblade. It would have to be sometimes after Future Connected, because that's a year later, right? Exactly. So we have a year where nothing bad, quote unquote, happens until the fog comes up. But then the fog comes up, and then I'm not sure where the fog comes from in Future Connected, because the fog was something that came as a result of Origin being hacked.
This is part of why, like, that and Shulk and Rex's age in this DLC is part of why I think that it took a lot longer for the worlds to merge, because they needed time to work on Origin anyway in order to make it to where these worlds just don't fucking blow each other up in the first place. And that fog is clearly the thing that's causing those events where the worlds start eating each other away.
Like, the Annihilation events, because they kind of allude to that in game.
And like, my guess on like the fog creatures is that they're creatures that existed in both worlds that are basically cannibalizing themselves, and that's why they're they become fog creatures.
But then what created them?
The way that I look at it, I think it truly is literally just premonitions of, because we now, with Xenoblade 3, we get told that it is basically a premonition of Annihilation. If the fog is connected to the fog beast and to the Annihilation fog we see, I'm trying to just apply that logic, because the more fog that we see is either in Future Redeemed, where we are at one, we have Onto still around, but it is still fresh, they've been building their systems. We see that off-seeing doesn't even exist as it does. Many systems of Ionios have not been put in place. But now, by the time that we're in Xenoblade 3, it's not necessarily there's less control, that we're closer to when it started. They're on a timer. They're running out. They can't postpone this any longer because it continues to merge and merge and merge and merge.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a lot like in Gears, how like there's like a time limit in that game.
Mm-hmm.
How like Deus has like a 10,000 year time limit to resurrect itself.
Yeah, it's real funny how they made Zed look so much like Krillin.
I don't know, because like the Fog Beast, like all it really says in that Affinity scene is that there are signs of the strained world the Black Fog birthed. That's what it says.
Remember how they say in the explanation, I believe it's in Shulk and Rex's explanation, where these two forms of ether don't mesh with each other in this state? That was what I thought was causing the fog in the first place.
Well, I thought that was like, how like actual matter and antimatter kind of works.
Yeah. So the fog is like an effect of that, and that's kind of what I was getting at with my idea around it. So like, that's the reason I was thinking. Oh well, so it would make sense if the fog beasts were beasts that were like native to both worlds, that they would kind of be like like the fog is them kind of like trying to merge with each other and not being able to take up a fully corporeal space in the same place.
Yeah, I think that kind of makes sense, actually. I think that makes sense. And I think that makes like extra sense that that cutscene talks about like Alpha having control over them, since like Alpha is like a CPU.
He's kind of between.
Processor. He's got like dominion over
kind of between, rather.
That kind of like realm of things.
Yeah,
I that makes sense to me. It's really silly the way that they exist and how they explained it, but
it's not super clear, just like a lot of things. But dude, I'm gonna say that wasn't super clear, but I was the one who went in with like such low expectations. I was surprised when they even brought up the Trinity processor in this DLC. I was like, no way, they're just gonna casually address this in a conversation. That's really interesting. that kind of blew me away how they addressed that. It was such a casual drop how they just like talked about all this stuff. Oh,
Not the Justin sigh. I heard that. What's up, Justin?
I'm just like, man, with this franchise,
I kind of love it,
and even like Saga and Gears, I feel like their approach is to just like make us write the story.
Oh man,
because that's what we're doing here. We are writing the story for them, the story that they're supposed to tell us.
I love it whenever like a huge reveal just gets dropped so casually like that, and it just hits like, wait, what? Did they just say what I thought they said?
Well, I mean, people called like Alvis like years ago.
Yeah, people call no, that's been debated for the last like since Xenoblade 2 came out.
And there's diehard deniers too. Literally before the DLC trailer, there were still diehard deniers that he was Oto.
I mean, yeah, like the core crystal. Like, I guess like the only way you could potentially deny it is, oh well, it didn't exist in the original game because it was just looked like a regular key. To which I say, well, what if the original key was the original design for those things?
Yeah. No, literally, after Future Redeemed, I am looking at Xenoblade as a whole, and I'm kind of stopping, and I'm like, I don't think you had all this planned out, but I am wondering how much you reworked of your original ideas to add into this, because a lot of this is very... Cool. I mean, for example, Earth basic... Sorry. I'll save that for later. We're getting into credits. I'll save it.
I was gonna say, Chris, based on on that, I thought in an interview, for like early interview for Xenoblade 3, they had said that. Well, of course we know whenever they did the original Xenoblade, they were trying to like do a new thing, kind of, and then it was successful to the degree it was, and whenever they went into with the mindset of making Xenoblade 2, they obviously kind of worked in another story to fit with that one, but also I thought they said they were planning 3 at the same time as they were parts of 2 as well.
So I know that quote relatively well, maybe not word for word, but I know the topic very well, and I can customize that a little. So basically what that quote is going into is that what you said, that 2 was developed with future in mind. However, that the story for Xenoblade 3 was developed sometime between the development of Xenoblade 1 and the development of Xenoblade 2. There's a certain game with a scrapped plot that has a lot of similarities to Xenoblade 3 that was developed in between Xenoblade 1 and Xenoblade 2.
Yeah. See, like...
So...
And honestly, seeing as how some of the details of this DLC went, I'm drawing a lot of parallels to, like, Cross that make more sense as to why things came together the way they did, but there's been some muddled stuff in the planning stages here for sure.
Yeah. This is the only point I'll make on it, because I don't like the idea of bringing people down on this, especially because there's enough of it already. But I am, unfortunately, Team Xenoblade X is not going to be canon. It's not going to happen, specifically because it does seem like Xenoblade 3 and Future Redeemed did every single thing they wanted to do with the original concept for X.
No, I can get behind you on that, honestly. And honestly, that's fine. I would love to see them, like, continue X, but it doesn't need to be connected for me.
Yeah, we'll get into that later. How about we
play X anyways?
Yes,
it's good again.
Please play the X if you can. But how about we like step away from all the theories and all the heavy talk and
we'll be back to it later.
We'll get back to it.
Let's go to something. Let's go to something simple. The characters. Now, I mean, they're not simple. A lot of them are kind of complex, especially A. But what do you guys think of like the relationship between Matthew and A?
Loved it.
I think that was the best deuteragonist relationship in the series. Like, full stop, the best deuteragonist relationship we've had in the series, which is wild because of how short of a time it is. And there's not exactly a lot, like Matthew. No offense to Matthew. He's not the deepest character. He's fine, but he's not very deep. He is a means to an end. You know what I mean? And the fact that him and a complex, can't get into it.
He exudes so much personality,
in such a short amount of time. Not even just that. The fact that they were able to develop such a strong relationship in such a short amount of time without any of the typicals. We didn't have trauma bonding. We did have power of friendship, but they did so little with them, but it works, which kind of sums up the DLC very well. They cut the excess and focus on the necessary and the good, and it works amazingly, and I think Matthew and A are the best example of that.
Well,
like, I would...
I'm sorry.
Oh, go on.
I was just going to say, I think it also works that Matthew, is portrayed as this kind of person who's, like, even though he's headstrong and he jumps into things, he leaps before he thinks, and they even say that, there's many times where, while Matthew is like, well, it's for the purposes of our journey, we're journeying together. It's not my business. Whenever A wants to open up to me about that, that's fine. But whenever things get into like crisis mode, Matthew is like, okay, I want to know what's going on. And Matthew is able to process all that. Like, he's not stupid. He's just impulsive. And
yes.
I think that's interesting that they played him that way.
Yeah, he's not dumb at all. Like, he's honestly pretty freaking wise.
Mm-hmm.
First does not mean stupid, and he is the epitome of that.
Yeah, he may not be knowledgeable, but he is wise. I guess I'll put it that way.
Now, while I say all this about Matthew, A clears entirely. I'm sorry. A may be my new favorite, maybe a favorite character in the series. However, I'll say this, of the sub-campaigns, A is probably my favorite of the characters they've added.
A has some pretty solid catchphrases, I'm not gonna lie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm glad that I didn't have to change my Discord profile picture.
Also, just like visually, A is just so striking to me. Like everything about their design is just
the earring.
Listen, I do not have my ears pierced. I saw that. I said to myself, "What if? What if I had that earring?"
I'll go with you. Let's go.
Hey, I can totally make you one. How's that sound?
Oh, that actually would be really good.
I could totally make you one.
Ooh.
No sarcasm there.
Ooh, that'd be good. Oh man, I'm gonna rock that earring.
While we're on A,
give me a few months.
While we're on A, can I discuss? It's not a spoiler, but can I discuss one tiny thing on that, or should we save that for later?
You can go for it. Yeah,
go ahead.
So the entirety of Xenoblade 3, we have no console A. We see the art for A. A is in an outfit that is very obviously Mobius inspired. A has the letter A as their name. Where the fuck is console A? Why did we couldn't have just said one thing at the end, like, oh, I'll become the new console. The console of Ionios or something. That's the thing that actually pissed me off. People have been theorizing that for this long. Y'all drop the character with the letter name. And we couldn't do anything? Nothing?
A just wasn't in their alphabet.
Yeah.
Alphabet.
We're just gonna...
Hey!
I just wish all the consoles had secretly been Sesame Street characters. That can be our cover image or something.
This episode brought to you by the letter A.
I can Photoshop some Sesame Street characters into, like, the console outfits.
Now, it is interesting, we talked this entire time about A, and I feel like we've missed one of the most standout parts of their character.
Do it.
A is very explicitly, and this is why I don't understand debates, and I'm not talking about pronouns, I'm talking about concepts.
Yeah.
A is very explicitly meant to exist outside of the gender binary. Rex, is it Rex who states it?
Yeah, Rex. That's the meme. That's Rex
a new meme.
Shulk is like, yeah. Basically, says you look different, and Rex walks up and says, "Logos was male, Numa was female, Alpha was always somewhere in between."
It's so explicit. Listen, you can have opinions on pronouns. Personally, I think that if anything, Albus leans a little closer to the he-they side of the non-binary spectrum. I think that A is a bit closer to the she-they. It makes sense. Anima, animus, all that jazz. Why are people fighting? The game is not hiding anything. The game is very obvious about their intents with that.
It's pretty
The game
straightforward.
spells it out. It spells it out perfectly in every language. They avoid pronouns the entire game. What is this a debate? I don't know.
Did they do the Juniper thing with the code for A?
So, actually, they are number 2, which if I remember correctly, 0 is male, 1 is female, 2 is the category that Juniper is in.
Okay, so they're also a 2.
Mm-hmm. Better than Rock's 4. At least they are somewhat close.
Rock is beyond.
I think it's rad that that's what people wanted and they committed to the bit.
Yeah. And they were very, like, good about it. Like, none of the characters gave a shit for it. And I think that was really, really good. That was actually handled quite well. They didn't really beat you over the head with it either. Like, Rex just says it matter-of-factly, and that's it. And I'm like...
See, and that's the thing. Cool. It's not only to the point, but it's also, a lot of the times when... As someone who's non-binary, which, hi, by the way, it's me. I use they, them pronouns. As someone who is non-binary, I find that a lot of times in media, it's very hard to handle that well. Not as in they can't do it. You can't. However, there's a lot of stumbling that happens with that sometimes. And they manage to not only keep it brief, not only move on, but just respect it as much and detail it as much. Because honestly, the way they worded things is the most basic definition you can give while still teaching people about it. It's not just, oh, I exist outside of that. It is specific. It spells out exactly what they thought. Everyone accepts it and everyone moves on.
Yep. Yeah, I personally think they needed to get into a heated argument about what gender A was through the whole game.
Pronoun wars. We needed pronoun wars. We needed nukes. We needed another experiment.
There's so many other things to talk about with this game. Like, just give it a rest and move the fuck on. Like, it's
that said,
regardless of what you think about it.
I do love all the memes with Rex. So next time someone misgenders you, Uncle Rex will come and save the day.
Etch their ass to death.
Well, you see, there is more gender.
There is a
Leave it to Uncle Rex.
There's all the gender to be had.
Oh, wait. There we go. There's the answer. A is a gender. There we go. You want to know what gender they are? They're A.
Literally.
Nice. Well, speaking of Rex, what do we think of Shulk and Rex in this game?
On Rex, am I allowed to be unhinged? We'll just leave it at that. I have some very unhinged thoughts on adult Rex, and I'm very happy to do that to him. I would give you all my Twitter where you can hear those thoughts, but I try to keep that private.
I'm glad that Rex is basically the same person that he always was.
Yes!
Except for a little more grizzled. I like the little bit more like world weary.
He's got a little bit more Bandom in him, and I like that.
Yes! It's very obvious who he took inspiration from, but at the same time, and I think, not necessarily this series, but series can be very bad at aging child characters where they become an entirely different person. This is literally just fucking Rex. This is Rex having actually grown up, learned from those around him, learned from the things he went through, and just shapes himself as that person. I think he does it better than Shulk, to be honest.
He's definitely more okay. I know you're not talking shit about Shulk, but
no, absolutely not.
I'm gonna defend Shulk because this is my favorite rendition of Shulk. Period.
Oh, he's great.
I feel like I actually really love him.
I feel like in the main game, like I know that a lot of people love Shulk, and I get the reasons why they do, but like he as a character at that age, I feel like he was slightly harder to connect to in some ways for me. But I get it. He comes from a place of like these feelings of anxiety and like not really knowing who he is and things like this. I love this like older, wizened Shulk who's just very calm and like
he went to counseling.
And like he's been through it and he like came out like so on top of things in a way that is just like very. He's the kind of person I would go to for therapy. That's what Shulk also, is in this.
He's a good father, too. Like, it was so cute when he was giving Rex advice. And I saw this really funny tweet about that where someone just like, yeah, it's so funny that Shulk's giving Rex dad advice because, like, all of Shulk's daddy figures are somebody who went into debt, his freaking brother-in-law, and then another guy who literally shot him in the back.
I mean, his brother-in-law was a pretty good dad figure.
Oh my goodness, I was screaming at my TV when, that one scene where he mentions Dunban, and then he goes, he was, and I'm just like, what happened to Dunban? Where is Dunban? Why is it was?
That's all. He was over there, he's not over there anymore. That's all, he's fine. He's
fine. Friend of mine.
Why are you saying was?
I love that Affinity scene, like, a friend of mine. That was, your brother-in-law, right? I guess he was.
So, this reminds me of something, and I meant to mention this earlier, I got a little bit distracted, but since we're on the topic of Shulk and Rex, we had mentioned before the issue of them not exactly communicating with them that they are their parents, right? There's a lot of complexity behind that, many different reasons. And I think this kind of sums up my feelings on Xenoblade 3 as a whole as well. It is a lot more of an emotionally focused game than a world-focused game. And I think that is a good thing. But I think, specifically for Shulk and Rex, I think if you can take the empathetic approach of, they have been away from their kids who they basically had stolen away from them for at minimum 200 years-ish. Possibly more than that. I also probably wouldn't know how to say anything myself. I probably would react the exact same, not gonna lie. Like...
That combined with just not wanting to overwhelm them given the situation of the world as a whole at that point. Like I was saying earlier, like, they don't even know the concept of parents. That never gets explained to them, and I guess being on the timeline they are, I guess they don't have like a lot of time to do so. I mean,
but also like it, and to kind of go to what I was saying earlier about why like I can kind of accept them not telling the kids. Also, like, they probably don't want to project who they know as their kids onto them.
They're different people. They've raised an entirely different life. Now, are they the same blueprint? Yes.
Yes, they are.
And I don't think clone...
But they're wiser than that.
There they are. But it's weird, and this is a whole... we're going to go into Origin. It's on our list. We'll get there. Y'all can wait.
Well,
and y'all, the audience can wait. We'll get to Origin.
I mean, even as clone, it's pretty clear that some memories leak through the gaps.
Yeah. Like they are at the end, even if they are the same blueprint, even if technically speaking they end up as the same person, it's kind of in the way of Numa creating Pyra and Mithra. They're like the same blueprint, the same core, all that stuff, which they aren't, you know what I mean? But they're built entirely different. They have entirely different experiences. Glimmer and Nicole from 10 years ago have an entirely different fucking life. They built entirely different machines. They played different songs. They had not different personalities, but they lived different lives. And Shulk and Rex don't know that. They weren't fucking there. So what are they going to do? Step in and act like they're some important figure? Act like they bear any importance to these two who don't even know them?
Yeah. I love that they just kind of naturally form a bond again with them.
I think, not only in terms of writing, but I think in terms of like a basic human level, that probably is the most touching way that you could have done that. Because if I stop and try to put myself in the situation as the kid, I wouldn't fucking believe you. I would think you're crazy.
Did you guys do on this topic roughly? It's kind of minor, but did you guys do the loot quest where Glimmer finds the loot? I love that one because at the end of it, or towards the end of it, the guy is like, oh yeah, to replace these strings, you need to gut this animal. And whenever you find it, Glimmer's like, I can't do this. I'm squeamish around guts, and Rex just does it for them. And he's
they turn around.
Yeah, they turn around, and he like carves it up with his
double spinning edge.
With his
swords. 2 hulking swords.
Yeah, with his giant laser swords.
I promise you, he definitely used both swords as a double spinning edge. He did not finally chop that thing.
He just like chopped the guts of it. Which I mean, like, you're gonna make strings out of them, so you're probably gonna be like drying and stretching them out a lot. But it was a very funny and really cute scene. So like. See, like, them, like, oh, Glimmer, like, oh, I can't, I don't want to see, like, well, I'll fight these guys, but I don't like to see this kind of gore. And Rex is like, I'll take care of it.
And then Glimmer turns around, and like 30 milliseconds later, Nicole turns around too. And I'm like, ha.
Wait, off topic. Did y'all notice that someone called Glimmer Shimmer in the document?
Oh my god.
Did they? Where?
Ah, shit. That might have been me.
Shimmer.
Sorry, that was a good one. That's
hilarious.
Funny. Who needs Glimmer? It's the action replay version. There we go.
That's
Shimmer is her twin sister.
Wait, that's Mithra's kid. There we go.
There we go. Glimmer and Shimmer. That's sort of them.
It's better than Dirk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
the only
I
thing
guess
that honestly, I want to say this just as an aside. The Dirk face reveal was a little disappointing to me. I wish he'd just been the monster face, but that'd be stupid. But I love Console D's look. I don't like Dirk's look as much.
That's how I feel about most of them, to be honest, except N&M.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
but I think that's kind of the point. I think they're really just supposed to be like stand-in upper class villain types. So it makes sense. They all look like just pompous rich people to an extent.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a new season of Entourage with them all in it instead of yeah. That's what it's going to be.
Well, I was gonna transition, but
yeah, go ahead, please transition. Save us.
So I mean, speaking of Nickel and Glimmer, what did we think about these two, or Shulk Jr. and Pyra Jr.?
I got something that's small but good about Glimmer.
Well, I'm just gonna tidbit. I wouldn't say it's Pyra Jr. I'd say more it's Mithra Jr. based on the attitude.
That's the thing.
I'm gonna say Numa Jr.
They're fused, but
That's
they
true.
obviously had two different kids.
But that's not that weird, considering Numa or Pyra and Mithra are it's like the Fae thing. They're two different personalities of the same person, technically.
Yes, but I guess where my thing is, why would we separate them just to fuse their kids back together?
I think that was short-sighted, but at the same time, it was definitely a DID thing originally.
It's better than Dirk. It's a lot better than Dirk. It's fine if it's not
it
Dirk.
is better than Dirk, but again, it's one of those things that just makes me just facepalm. I'm just like, why?
Anyway.
And another little tidbit is about Nicole's weaponry, because he couldn't summon a blade. I really like that they were nope on arms. That's
It's so cute.
That's the Torah reference.
It was adorable.
That is the only things that I like about Nico. He's a fine character, but I am going to get this out of the way. This is the only gameplay, battle stuff I'm going to talk about. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at numbers. Nico is maybe the worst face tank I've used in the entire Xenoblade series, which is insane. I don't know how we reverted back to this, but he is somehow worse than every other one I've used. And I did upgrade him. I did give him a good bit of upgrades. He is just garbage. He doesn't do enough damage.
Well, he doesn't, but his big thing is more block rate, I think.
But here's the thing: you can't block attacks if you're not doing enough damage to keep the aggro.
That's fair. Well, I mean, no, he kept aggro for me fine.
Yeah, he can keep aggro because you can build him so that he constantly builds aggro.
He kept a shitload more aggro than Shulk did for sure.
Yeah, you can build him that way.
Yeah, but no, it's just. He's fine as a character. He's not offensive. I think he's a nice little cap-off to Shulk and Fiora's characters.
Yeah.
But Monolith, if we're going to require tanks in our team, I need y'all to make better tanks that do actual damage, or I need y'all to rework the aggro system. Maybe we need an actual stance system. We have stances, but they're kind of weird. Maybe we need an MMO stance system where it's a permanent thing that you set instead. And maybe there's moves that disrupt it rather than it being a constant game of who's doing the most damage.
Well,
but that's more Nickel's problem than the game's problem. I just don't like Nickel gameplay wise.
I do wish there were a little bit more about the aggro out in the open in some ways, but as far as because even though there's a lot built around aggro in these games, it's never exactly clear what the imaginary number behind it working is. So yeah, I agree that there could be more to showing the player somehow where that's at, but at the same time, my thoughts on Nicole, now that you bring it up, I just now thought of that whenever you brought that up, but whenever B brought that up actually, but yeah, I didn't think about this before, but Nicole's not being able to summon a blade and making their own is really is an homage to Torah in a way, and that's kind of fun and interesting.
Also, I was not expecting his voice to be as deep as it was.
Girl, what the fuck was his voice? We started cutscene, I was just oh!
I was
okay.
Yeah,
he's a grown.
Yeah, Fiora smoked cigarettes when she was pregnant. I'm kidding. Sorry.
She had a rough ending. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
After she got the robot body gone, it just wasn't the same.
I just can't. Yeah, it's the
how
she dealt with the stress of getting the normal body back and the traumas. I gotta smoke. No.
She took after Dixon.
Yeah. Oh god.
Someone has to fill Bionis with smoke.
This narrative is going places.
It's going places.
Right. No, okay, so I had a thought on Glimmer that I really like this thought. I think Glimmer is one of the most meta characters in the series because whenever you drop her from a really high height and she takes damage, she literally insults the player and it's amazing.
Yeah. Nice. She kind of does Mithra does, doesn't she?
Nice going, wise ass.
I haven't tried that, but now I have to.
Yeah, no, Mithra did that as well.
Yes, she did. Yeah,
in Torna, she has her own quotes, and she's basically just watch where you're going.
That's right. So Mithra and Glimmer are the meta characters that basically talk to the player, and that's hilarious. I do love that about them. I wanted to mention that.
On Glimmer, because I mentioned like nothing about Glimmer. I don't have a lot story-wise to say, but I like that her single loot string sounds like a Microsoft error message, just over and over. I didn't know what was going on for so long.
Same. I thought it was like, do I have my laptop on? Is
I know
something
my Switch was
happening?
crashing.
Also,
I
I just
actually really loved playing Glimmer. Sorry, go on.
Glimmer's cool. I like that we kind of have a bard character.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
That's neat.
and her opening attack bonus is one of my favorites because the crit up.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, approach from the back with Glimmer always. No, there were certain situations in which I would use other characters for the approach, but most of the time it was Glimmer because that crit up. I was like, hell yeah, let's go.
On that, this is back to gameplay, and this is probably the last I'll mention of this. I hope going forward we do actually keep those battle attack bonuses as like character-specific things.
I
thought that added a lot, and I think it added so much to how you can approach battle rather than just open battle, do QTE, move up. Well, I guess the QTEs are removed from the series now, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. I think that, I think that, like, in the bigger games, they're trying to, which I do like the shift in 3 to where, like, everything is based around, you can change anyone to any class. Mm-hmm. I do like that about it, but it would be cool if, like, for more just, like, character differences in, like, this character always has this initiative bonus or something, that would be awesome to add that. So, like, because a lot of them are so universal, it doesn't really necessarily matter what class they are because they benefit the entire party.
Well, see, and on that, the inverse, I think that it technically does better in Future Redeemed because I think that having those entrance bonuses on that skill tree says a lot more for the character than a completion bonus or a special attack that they can do at the end.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Because it's simpler and it adds more to each individual battle at the start rather than just something towards the end that may come up every once in a while. Maybe.
Yeah. It's just like more bonus EXP a lot of times at the end anyway. Mm-hmm. So
yeah.
Which, like I think that'd be like a good identity thing for each character to like, like you can change them in any class, but they always have this initiative bonus or something. I think that would be very nice to implement in the main games going forward and such. But yeah. What else were we on?
Did anybody else have any thoughts on Nickel and Glimmer?
I like them both. Glimmer, I initially didn't really think too much of her, but as it went on, I grew to like her more and more. Because I like for a while, it's kind of just like, what are they doing with her? I kind of felt like, what's going on? Where are you going with her? But then in the end, I ended up liking her, and I had a feeling I would, but
I really liked her. I especially liked how they made a character that was even more reluctant to join than the normal, because like, while I did like how they handled it in 3, I thought that Glimmer was one of the most natural feeling in a lot of ways because of just like this hard ingrained loyalty and like the switch that just caught her off guard to the point where it was like, well, she's stubborn in general and like it reflects here to this degree and it makes a lot of sense.
I would say it's past stubbornness even. It goes to like the psychological side of things. She's deep in that Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that would be the bigger way to put it, yeah.
I will say,
go ahead.
I was going to say, that led to quite possibly like something that I would consider to be like a top 3 line in the entire franchise when, I forgot what Matthew said. Matthew said something, and then Glimmer was just being Glimmer about it. And then A just goes, he'll grow on you.
Yeah. Dude, that scene where Matthew just, like, throws them off to the side on top of each other is hilarious. It's so
That
good.
is also funny.
It's so good.
There's so many great lines in this DLC. Yes. Like, if there's anything I can say about it, is that it gave me some of the best lines in the franchise.
The last point I'll make on Glimmer, I think she's a good character. I don't have any issues of her specifically as a character. Mm-hmm. I do think she's maybe the weakest character, though, because she kind of doesn't stand out on her own.
Yeah.
Nicole, he at least has his robot building stuff, the inability to build blade. He has other things going on. Glimmer relies almost entirely on Rex and dedication to Agnes, which is, again, not bad. It's not bad. I think she's great.
Works. I kind of disagree with that, because while the robot building thing is definitely like Nicole and Shulk's thing, I think the instrument thing is Glimmer's thing.
Yeah, but the problem is, it's nice, but like, as far as the main story goes, like, that's what I like about Glimmer. Like, I felt like she was kind of just there for a lot of it.
My thoughts. She's just there.
Gotcha.
Love her, but
whereas Nicole actively participated, and the whole game I'm just like, when are we going to do something with Glimmer? And
yes, I was hoping she was going to like fight Ontos at the end or some shit. Like,
and don't get me wrong, like there's parts later on that are much better with her, like when her and Nicole fight Shulk and Rex, and they really want to prove themselves. I thought that was good, and the side quests I thought were pretty good with Glimmer, like the loot quest, that was cool.
But here's my thing. One of those moments is she alone, and it's just her character that is building. One of this is just Glimmer. A lot of Glimmer's entire character positivity is connected to other characters, which is fine. It's great, especially with Rex. But it does bring her down for me a little bit.
I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that.
I guess that I was thinking like along the lines of she took the initiative on like the loot quest thing in particular, and like that was one quest, but I can't say much more about like Nicole doing a lot more than that either, because it's a short game.
Here's my secret. I don't like Nicole that much, so I'm not defending him in any way whatsoever.
No, I know. He was my least favorite to play, but that doesn't factor into my feelings on him. I just thought he was...
Oh, no, that's what I mean. Because I think he's not bad. She's not bad. But he is more active. I think that's a good way to put it. He's a lot more active. He's constantly fixing things. He's a lot more involved with Riku and stuff like that.
He's more involved in the group, for sure.
Yes. Now, that's also a character trait, because Glimmer kind of wants nothing to do with the group.
Yeah.
But it does affect, in terms of, like, overall grading scale, it does affect her a little bit.
Yeah, and I think, unfortunately, with Glimmer, we really don't get to see that much of a progression from her not want to do anything versus, you know what? I want to help you guys. I want to prove myself. Like, it felt kind of sudden when they finally had that shift with her personality. Like, I felt like there's just something missing with her.
I feel like they were going for that thing that I like to go by, like, narrative through gameplay, where it's just, like, a gradual growing, but it's between everything. It's not expressively... It's not, like, stated in a cutscene.
Yeah.
I don't know how you handle that. Like...
Well,
in that form, maybe you like know? Every now and then throughout the cutscenes you do, but I don't mind whenever they take some of just like, oh, well, they spend all this time together in the gameplay for part of the story thing. I don't mind that being a thing.
I feel like Mithra did a very similar thing, but better though.
I also think so.
I agree. I agree with that. But Mithra also had a lot more time to do so. To be fair,
it's weird. It had more time and less time. It had more time in like side quests, which is where I think it mattered for a character like Mithra. I think for Glimmer it should have been the main story. Mithra, it works best because it's in the side quest. She is having to open up and start helping people and realize there's a point in building those relationships. Glimmer is forced into a situation and just uncomfortably sitting here and kind of here, which honestly, girl, same. I relate to you. You're great. But it does, if I'm like watching TV, you're going to be the least interesting person on the TV.
Yeah.
I guess my thought is, like, there was a little bit of that in some of the side quests where Glimmer took the initiative anyway, but also that Mithra had an entire game, or, like, the most of an entire game and a DLC to do that with.
Yeah. I'm just talking Torna, though, in that case, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
Like,
yeah. Well, there's a lot that
like...
happens between Torna and the main game, too, so...
Yeah.
What's up, B?
I didn't really like Glimmer, just for the fact that like, we're chasing her for most of the once we see her.
Oh, I liked her for that reason.
Oh, okay, fine.
No, go on. I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Okay. So I just thought, like, okay, she's running away. She's misattitude, whatever. She's not going to turn. Then she slowly turns, but she's still not really convinced until the end that, the flame clock's gone, blah, 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 blah. I just didn't. Like, I thought that she was there for the ride and not for the participation of. That's just me, though.
No, I think you're right.
I could have done that a lot better.
Yeah. I think that you're right, but that's also the reason I like her, because it felt realistic in a way to me, I guess I would say.
This is such a strong cast that me saying that I don't like her as much as the rest does not mean I do not like her in any sense whatsoever. Like, regardless of my thoughts, I think she's still a pretty great character.
Yeah, gameplay wise, I'm not gonna lie, but her like cello or whatever, it was very irritating. Like the spring, and I'm like, okay.
You don't like the Microsoft error noise? Come on.
Yes,
I liked it, but I like some pretty bad music, I guess. So
I will say, totally off topic, but on that, you have her little loot that every 2 seconds. It's really short. It doesn't feel like a whole note. But then you also, because she's putting fields down with A every 2 seconds, you have that sound going off every 2 seconds. It's just like, okay, y'all could have picked a different noise, please.
Oh, did she work that way for you? Because I had to switch to both her and... Oh, wait. Yeah. Her and... I had to... Any character that had a field effect in this game, I had to switch to them to get them to do it, because they wouldn't fucking put it down when they had it.
Really? Well, see, here's my thing.
Constantly. Like, they would hold on to it. They would sit on it. And I'm like, there's no reason not to have this field down right now. And that's fine, because I was always switching character. I always do in these now. Anyway.
I'm aggressive, even when it comes to, like, even though she's an offensive healer, no, bitch, that's full offense. We're hitting buttons nonstop. We're comboing, go.
Oh, yeah, me too.
So... If I don't, like, for example, we have Lapidaris in the main game now, right? Which is all focused on, like, putting those circles down, fast recharge, art recharge, blah, 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 blah.
Fast recharge.
I see Tyon doing it. It's amazing. I didn't use that class until my New Game Plus 3 run that I did after the DLC. It's fucking amazing. Play Lapidaris. But...
Well, that and even just Troubadour throwing down the art recharge thing was like,
Honestly, I lost my point.
Oh, sorry.
I talked so long that I circled around. I don't remember where I was going with that.
I just don't think the DLC did enough for Glimmer, or Nickel for me to like them that much.
Glimmer gives us really good reaction images.
Yes,
yeah, she does.
Yes,
I like her design, and I like her gameplay, and I
love her little pyro boots. They're so cute.
No pun intended. They definitely took second fiddle compared to everyone else in this DLC, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like, I don't know if, like, I think like the things that bothered Justin about them not like being direct about a lot of things, like, really compounded that for me. Like, it's like not only did they not do that much in the story, but they couldn't even do that. Like, it's like they didn't do enough for them, for me personally speaking.
I get you.
Mm-hmm. That's
this
fair.
kind of goes into a point that we skipped in our notes, and this is my proposition. I think Linka and Panacea should have been cut so that Nicole and Glimmer could have actually had some time to shine, even if it was literally just a few more scenes.
Bingo.
Because who the fuck are those characters? What do they... I mean, I know they have stuff going on. There's a lot of... I've seen a lot of the, like, details that get revealed about them.
I get that...
But did we need them when we didn't have the explanations for everyone else?
I get that Shulk and Rex are their mentors, but they didn't need to be... And they were with them all the time. Technically, they just were non-participants in fights.
Yeah.
But they didn't have to be asking and answering as many questions as they did in the little, like, snippets of cutscene stuff and dialogue. Yes.
It felt like a waste of time. Like, nothing against them. They're fine characters. It just felt like a waste of resource. It's like one of the few things in this DLC that... Because I talked a lot earlier where it felt like they cut the excess and added in just what they thought was needed and what would really steal the show. And then you have Linka and Panacea, who are fine, but it's like, why are y'all here? What's the thesis? Because y'all didn't name drop them. We didn't get direct confirmation that they are their parents. We didn't even see fucking Turners. We didn't see Turners.
If they're gonna do that, they can at least not, like, tease everyone with them.
Yeah, like, if it was between me getting more answers on, like, the original cast and me having Linka and Panacea as walking references, sorry, girls. Shantae away. No. No. They're fine, but I also, as someone who is going to go back, and I don't know if I said this earlier, I ran through the game and I was going to New Game Plus it 100%. Well, there is no New Game Plus, apparently, for future redeems.
Yeah, you just go back into it. Yeah. That's what I did.
Yeah, that's what I plan to do. But it's like, why are they here? If I had the choice, why would I pick to explore them? There's nothing. Oh, they like the same food as Zeke. Okay. Cool. That's cool. What else do I get?
Fried octomayo.
Which, great reference. Honestly, great fucking reference.
Yep.
But
we
didn't need it.
I was surprised no Adam's Ember cakes. That would have been fun.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Actually, it was kind of cool. There's quite a few like Tantal references in here.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
like there is
the Black Mountains are basically Tantal mixed with the Valak Mountain,
and yet we couldn't get a remix of Tantal.
Yeah,
that is true. Yeah, they even referenced that one clock that Rex finds in one of the quests. Like that gets referenced. There's a really fun affinity scene where Rex is talking to Glimmer about the Tantal ruins, and then Glimmer's just completely uninterested.
That, and I love that for some reason, judging by what, there's a lot more than just Black Mountain and the Tantal, or in the Black Mountains than just like Valak and the Tantal ruins that got mixed, because there is that side quest where you help the treasure hunter liberators, and you go into a High Entian tomb, and it's just like, okay. And they're like, how do we get in this? And Shulk is like, I think I know how. And they're like, how'd you know that, Shulk? And he's like, I've come across something like this before. And I'm like, nice. I like that.
Segue, it's so funny. I like to imagine Z just sitting in Origin, minding his business Minecraft creative mode, just picking pieces like, ooh, this would be cool together. Let's put all that in this area of my universe. Let's put this here. Something doesn't make sense. It's like, well, yeah, he Minecraft creative moded everything together. Like, yeah, we just have all this mashed together.
Well,
are we really that done with Linka and Panacea already? Are they that unmemorable?
Is that what
yes.
I thought we were talking about? Yeah, okay. I guess that is. I find it a little weird that Panacea doesn't really say much of anything about.
Yeah, she doesn't.
That she really doesn't address her parents. She could have at least said, "My dad's kind of a joker" or something. Like
something.
Yeah.
I guess part of it, maybe they didn't want to confirm that Charla did rebounds onto an 18-year-old child. Maybe.
Oh, wait, wasn't Charla like the same age though?
Charla was like late 20s, if I remember correctly. No,
I don't think she was that much older.
I don't think she was that much older, and I don't actually think that they number dropped for Charla in the first.
If
they she's 21. She's specifically 21.
Yeah.
My point is more about the rebound, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, that part's...
Is it really that much weirder than what happened with Rex?
I mean, no, but here we are. We're dealing with the consequences.
Then let's leave this mess behind.
This is why we're not going to worry about the shipping. There's much deeper implications to other parts of this story to get into.
Honestly, this is all I'm going to say on this picture, even with that picture, I think there are a lot more important discussions to be had than the discussions that are being had, regardless. And I think there's a lot of jumping to conclusions, and this isn't about anyone in here or in the server or anyone who listens to us. But I think we could recenter a lot of that conversation. There's so much more to talk about. I'm tired. We don't need to talk about it anymore.
There are so much more interesting things to talk about than that part of the conversation. I agree.
A more interesting thing to talk about, Nael.
My goodness!
I could have pulled a Simpsons movie right there and been like, and everybody who talks about it and listens to this podcast is a big idiot, especially you. No,
Nael. Oh my goodness! I am okay. So I can't stunt when they showed Niall's design. I was like, she's hot. I'm into that.
Well, why are her hips larger than her shoulder, but she's skinny?
I don't mind.
Why is she built like that? It's great, but why is she built like that? What are y'all putting in these cat girls?
Cat girls are built different, I guess.
I'm just like, man, how did they make a cat girl that could just appeal to me like this?
They did it 3 times in a row, too.
They did it 3 times in a row.
You remember Nia's.
Man. But then I got pissed off with Niall, because you can only play as her for one fight.
I got pissed off for different reasons.
The game.
I have a lot of complex thoughts on Niall.
So mad about that.
Some of it is gameplay. I think it's kind of a cowardly move to not have her be playable. I think where you get her is fine. If anything, I almost think that she should have only been freely playable after the credits.
You get to play as her.
She should have been able to play. Like you could play as Niall. I think they
should
have
done one point in the game for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's like
it's less that I think it's a good decision, and more that I can. If you say that's why, sure, I'll buy it and I'll move on. Sure.
I'm like, why? Like, she clearly has a full moveset. Why not just make her playable?
Yeah.
Like, make her switch between. If you want to keep the 6-party system, make it where she's switchable between guest and party. You could just switch out one of your party members and have her as one of those switch 2 characters, because her moves were super fun to use in that little fight. There.
I kind of wonder if it's something with the basic system, like you can't have that hero be playable, or maybe you can't easily change the 6-party system with the engine that they're using right now.
Well, that's why I say make one of the other characters in the 6-party system like switch to the guest.
That's
slide.
what I mean.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if that would also be an issue, because none of the other reasons I can think of make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's just odd. But my thing, Niall. And this is weird for Xeno, because she's not a villain, but she's an antagonist. And she's not necessarily a protagonist, but she's a character that we care about. And correct me if I would love to know y'all's opinion on this. She may be the first Xeno main character / antagonist that I actually don't have much empathetical insight onto. Like, I kept seeing things happen to her, and I was just like, wow, that sucks.
Well, I mean... she loves the children, and
she does.
The children get hurt, or one of them gets killed at least, and and Alpha takes advantage of her feelings on that to take over her. So, like, she kind of gets fridged.
And that's the thing. It's kind of like I like the and that's why we have in in the notes. Originally, it was just a villain. I think she's a victim as well.
Yeah.
But my thing, I kind of, and it's sad to say this in a series like this, which is why I really want to hear y'all's opinions. I kind of don't care. Almost. Not as, like, I don't care about her, but it's kind of like, I feel like compared to other characters in either role, whether it be, like, Shulk fulfills a similar role. We have both the protagonist and the antagonistic side. I don't feel like she stood up to any of those similarities.
I think the portrayal of what she's going through is, like, too brief. So, that it kind of glosses over, what all she's been through.
What I would have liked for Niall was for her to interact with the rest of the cast. I think there would have been a really great opportunity to have her and Shulk talk specifically, because Niall is pretty much... what happened to Niall is pretty much what happened to Shulk.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you think about it at its core. It's technically speaking, when Shulk was hosting Zanza is technically mildly influenced by Ontos as well, so it's a lot more similar than you think at a surface level. And they don't talk about it. He, like, mentions it. He's like, oh yeah, it's kind of like what happened with me. But not to her.
Yeah. And I think, and that's definitely, like, the intention there was to, reference that. And I'm like, I think it's a huge missed opportunity to not have her interact with Shulk specifically. Yeah. Like, even if it was like a post-game thing where, like, she has, like, an extra affinity scene with Shulk, I think that would have been so cool, but no. We don't get that.
I kind of wish there were more, like, affinity scene moments, like, after the credits when you had Niall in your party.
That would have been great.
Like, I feel like that they had the system in place, why didn't they just make a few things, I guess, but...
It's so funny. A lot of Xenoblade 3 feels so complete, and especially with, like, the release date being moved up, DLC releasing this much earlier, it feels like a lot was really, like, hammered in and done in advance. Like, they had a good handle on time. And then Niall kind of feels like the exact opposite of that. Niall, especially gameplay-wise, feels kind of shoehorned in.
I feel like we did not have enough time for Niall. I think that if she had more time, she'd be much better of a likable character. I think of her kind of like, I'm going to pull a Disney reference here. I think of her as like Ariel from Little Mermaid, as like that she wants something. Like for her, she wanted peace. So a villainous character will dangle a little carrot, and she has to lose something. In this case, she lost her body, became an avatar, to be able to gain something that would be more beneficial to her wants and needs. So in this case, to be an avatar for Elvis to create everlasting peace. Kind of like Ariel wanted to give up her voice to get a man, blah, 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 blah. I just think there needed to be more time. Overall, I didn't hate her. I kind of liked her as a character. I kind of understood where she was coming from, why she went kind of to the dark side. Yeah.
See, that's my thing. Like, I think as two separate things, she's fine. Well, quote unquote fine. I think she's better as a random agnostic villain who is just someone who's being taken advantage of, and has no real character stake. And I think that the narrative role of the alpha avatar is great.
I'm not considering
else,
her. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just saying everything else I feel a lot less.
Yeah, I'm not like, I know in the document villain ? I'm not considering her a villain. I'm just thinking.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, considering her as someone who found the dark side and blah 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 blah.
Well,
Darth
I don't
Vader
even think
moment.
she necessarily. I don't even think she took. I don't think she saw the dark side and followed that. I think she was depressed as hell. I think she was in her absolute lowest and taken advantage of. Just fully. I think that's basically the entire point of her character.
She was in a place where
interests me more.
I was gonna
I think
say
she's just misguided. Like,
Yeah.
she's misguided a lot.
Yes.
I think that's, like, part of it. She reminds me of Shion a lot.
I think
in
that
way.
she had misdirected hatred. Like, the problem, she had deemed the problem as, these people that are on each of these sides fighting this war killed our city people, killed our children from the city, missing that was not them so much as that was, like, the greater problem at hand, in that they are being made to fight they're child soldiers being made to fight in the first place. And
Then
that
there's
was,
even a one-up on that.
was
like,
even, like, able to take advantage of that with her,
Because we have that whole side of it, but then there's also the fact that not only is she misdirecting her hate, but she's also... by the time of Xenoblade 3, and we know that House Doyle did become this, she is falling into what eventually became the conservatism that was trying to take over the city.
That's
she wants
true.
to preserve everything exactly as it is now, which I was going to say this for Origin, but we're going to talk about it now.
I mean, we might as well.
I know, we're basically into it, but
We're like an hour and 30 minutes in. We gotta get there eventually.
I feel like a lot of people are taking it as basically they chose people to take to a better place, and they chose people who he deemed as pure. But I think there's something very specific that gets missed, and I think it plays into Niall's view and nihilism that she has. Nihilism, ha ha ha, we'll move on. So,
Yeah.
The thing about it is, and you kind of have to consider what we learned in the base game, which does this too. The city represents the future. The city is, which is kind of weird in a game that's all about, like, being the future, that we have some, like, predetermination of the future in terms of genetics. Like, oh, this person's going to come out this way, which means they technically have to have this person as their mom, this person's that, blah, blah. Anyways, not getting into that. But at the end of the day, the city represents the future. We see all these races try to commingle, and they eventually return to humanity, right?
Yeah.
What I took it as is not necessarily him just trying to do that. He is deeming that what is the old is irrelevant. What is the old is keeping everything going as is, and annihilation is in fact the goal, which he basically says. He wants things to annihilate. Mobius directly opposes that. That's why we have that entire conflict. But the thing is, Niall is over here completely thinking that nothing is worth it. That neither side is justified. That all of this needs to end. That perfectly aligns with Alpha's idea that what is here is unworthy, and I am going to take this life to a new plane of existence, which I don't think they would have fucking survived. I think it would have been basically the experiment 2.0 and restarting things again.
It's an interesting narrative setup because you've got, like, clearly the Mobius and their whole plan of, like, keeping these people in constant feud with each other to, like, sustain themselves is horrible, but the solution for Alpha and the rest of them to all of that is kill them all. Yes. And that is not, it's like a situation of, you're kind of in the right, these people are horrible for doing that, but there are a lot of victims in that that you don't need to get involved, and so that is not the answer as to how to handle it.
Like, Niall has gone, oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, funny enough, when I was explaining this DLC to somebody, they said, "Oh, so it's Guardians of the Galaxy 3." I'm like,
no, not even close.
Okay.
So, I think this is the last thing I'll say on that. You have Alpha, who is, at this point, because you had beforehand, Logos and Numa at least provided some balance. Then you had the experiment where you had Galea and Klaus providing some balance, for better or for worse. At this point, there's basically nothing. He is just the AI. He is the completely emotionless AI that is just doing what it is the computer deems necessary. And then you have Naya, who has given up on fucking everything. That is a horrible combination. And no wonder they almost started a rapture.
Life goes on. That's all. As long as life goes on, human life goes on in some way,
But then it's also narratively... I'm sorry, I have one more point. It's narratively interesting that it's basically an arc. They continue to call it as an arc, right?
Yeah.
Origin was basically an arc to begin with. As we know, Origin basically was holding everything in their memories, the data of the world, to recreate everything after the fact. That's kind of what he was thinking of doing. But we know that it would not have ended up that way. Everything probably would have shit and we would have had another experiment.
Yeah, it's definitely something about this planet.
Don't mention that.
No. I just I love how many parallels to
I know.
Cross's life Origin has whenever it was explained in this DLC.
Honestly, since the credits of Xenoblade 3, I have been holding on to the fact that Origin was basically the confirmation that a lot of it was like X. And I was like, I'm just going to wait here. I'm not going to be right. And I was just waiting and waiting and waiting. Then we got the DLC. And I was like, no, it was on purpose. Okay, cool.
Yeah. It does make X look more like a design doc for what was to come in some ways, but I'm not taking it as to mean it's connected necessarily explicitly or anything, but
we've commented several times throughout the podcast and just in general about how they seem to like to reboot their ideas a lot with these games.
They tackle the same themes in every game. The same philosophical themes come up in every game.
Reusing ideas is an entire topic towards the end of the document, which we're not even close to yet.
Which do not get me wrong. I'm fucking here for it.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, it wouldn't surprise me if that's the case here.
Which, speaking of, should we move along? Because we are definitely very long into this episode and not very far along.
Well, you guys
kind of tackled some stuff early, too.
Yeah.
And you guys technically just talked about Alpha, so... I mean, does anyone else have any thoughts on Alpha? Did you like them as a villain, or?
Well, see, I'm allergic to Alpha, so
Alpha.
Yes, sorry.
No, I liked Alpha as a villain. The whole computer aspect, especially what we see at the back end of X. Sorry, one where Alpha's the
it's
future.
All connected.
It's all connected. The future is yours to decide, and Alpha did repeat some of those things again. But Alpha was kind of like that computer that needs, to be shot a few times and restarted.
Smack it, it's fine.
With a shoe?
Yeah.
Yes, with a shoe in the face.
I just used my hands.
Why didn't they do that to Am and I have no mouth but I must scream? I don't understand. They should have just slapped it a few times and made the computer work. Anyway.
Yeah, I will say my really only last comment on Alpha. I think A does a lot of the legwork for that character because at the end of the day, we always knew that Alphys was kind of morally gray. They weren't villainistic. They weren't protagonistic. They're kind of just there watching and they decide who is strongest. So this feels like a very natural conclusion for that character. But it also makes sense that after essentially being offed, if given the ability to basically come back, that character would become slightly more human and evolve and want to carry out that will.
Well, so isn't that what AIs do? Isn't that what AIs do? Learn and evolve?
I mean, yes, but that's also technically what already happened with the Trinity processor, and then the world exploded, and we know what happened.
I mean, I always took Alpha as okay. So Klaus is dead, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that data is not in Origin, other than his regrets and that whole that more nihilistic side of him. That still exists, and that's essentially what Alpha is made from. So you have a computer that's just acting very logically, not necessarily caring for humanity. It's just doing what it thinks is the right thing to do. Kind of like Cosmos early on.
Zeros and ones. It's zeros and ones at the end of the day, and it's nothing more.
Forgive me.
Very Deus from Xenogears.
Where it gets a bit interesting is where A comes into play, because everybody thought that human aspect of Alpha is gone, but somehow it wasn't, and it
split
took
like the worlds.
Yeah, but it took the destruction of the city. It took N destroying the city for that to happen.
Well, then, okay, so on that, I'm sorry, we're going to get into that. It's not even that, and it's really weird. I missed this 3 times watching these cutscenes. It wasn't even the attack. It wasn't the explosion. Wait. Somehow, fucking Gondor is able to separate A from Niall, because he lunges forward, turn her. Yeah, we see the green light. So something with either Numa Core or the Ouroboros Stone separates them? Or just something reactivates that side of him?
That's pretty much how A explains it, is like, whenever in attacked, I separated from Alpha. I broke out of it. She literally says, I broke from his chains, as if she was being suppressed, or they were being suppressed, rather.
But it's like, why did Gondor do it? Why is it specifically because of Gondor? What about Gondor made it happen?
Might be the familial connections. I don't know.
That's one of those examples I wish we would have gotten it spelled out.
It's a stretch, much like the end of Interstellar.
It's something about this planet.
It's one of those things where I think it's just they were fighting and somehow it happened. It's bullshit, but you know what? That's all we're gonna get out of this.
Listen, this series goes further with some of this shit than any other as is, so I'm forgiving of that bullshit.
Yeah. Also, at the end of the day, Xenoblade is a very anime series. I don't care what people say. Stuff like this is going to happen just because it looks cool.
Yeah.
End of day.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, we're lucky that we got as much philosophy as we do in this.
Can we talk about Riku real quick?
Why is he here? I know why he's here. But one, how are you just going to casually drop it in a trailer? He's just there. He's just standing there.
Yeah. Wait,
no pawns live a really, really, really,
they can live a long time.
I know, and I know the reasons. But we also know that's not the specific reason he is here. Like, we know the whole Liberator mess and all that stuff. But it's like, why are you here? Yeah. You are not common variety Nopon. You are lying. Why are you here?
So, we were talking about this earlier, and I can't remember if you had to click it or not, but does anybody remember in this DLC if it was required to progress the story for you to, like, go up to the sword after you get it in Chapter 4 and click it and see that cutscene?
It was not. No.
Okay,
so a lot of people didn't even know about it.
So I feel like a lot of people missed it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, wait, was that just, like, I happened to be back in Colony 9, like, looking around for other stuff, and I noticed, there's a bunch of question marks whenever I clicked the wrapped up sword, and it led into a full-on cutscene, and since then I've been thinking, did I imagine that was, like, optional, or was that actually optional? And that's where, like, Riku explains kind of why he's there?
Yeah. And, like, I understand why he's there. It's more like a joking, why are you here? But, like, at the same time, why are you here?
Yeah.
What is your actual... How...
What do you mean Riku invented the egg, basically, or, finished it anyway?
So, one of the things that kind of threw me for a loop with this was, in base game, I remember, I think it was Nia who was talking about how a certain Nopon helped her.
Yeah.
And so, I'm thinking, that must have been Tora. But I guess it's not Tora.
Nope.
I think it still is, because you see Tora in that art. I think I think Melia had help of Riku, and Nia had the help of Tora, if anything, is how I took it.
I got it. Tora and Riki had a baby. I'm kidding.
They're the same person, obviously.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But yeah,
two
Riku...
places at once.
I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters whose child Riku actually was, but
no, it doesn't. It's just it could be either of them.
Yeah,
because he did mention that his dad traveled with Melia. Again, it would have been nice if they could just say it, but
it would have been
whatever.
Cool, but
they're not going to do that. But on another note, on a related note, another thing that really pissed me off about this game is I was expecting to see Poppy.
Oh, yeah.
I never even thought about that.
Because, what the hell was the point of that then?
She should have been in the game.
So, I mean, obviously she would still be alive. The point of it was to be a fun cameo. That's it.
Actually, wait, I have an idea. I have
an idea too. I'm gonna get to it. So, what I was thinking was maybe Poppy existed outside of Origin and was getting information about the world and sending it back to Origin, and that's why she's around.
Wait, they say that though. That's how Nia works. Nia gets the information from. She basically looks towards Poppy's entire thing.
Right, but is Poppy sending that info back to Origin, or is she just sending it to Nia?
I thought to Nia.
I thought it was. So I knew it was being sent to Nia, but I thought she was also sending it to Origin as well. That's what I was thinking, and because of that, I was expecting Poppy to actually play a role in this.
So my idea, and unfortunately, it kind of fridges Poppy. She genuinely could just be a fucking battery. Which is why she isn't involved at all and why she's asleep the entire time. And at that point, why did she have to be there? We could have just had the ether furnace and moved on.
She's the new Cosmos AMA.
No. I mean, Nia has a fucking Cosmos bed.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something from Xenoblade 3 that, again, there's a lot about that ending that, irked me, and this DLC didn't help that. I'm like, but you have this here. You go out of your way to show this and to talk about it.
But I'm gonna be. That's crazy to me. That was the last thing on my mind. I was like, oh, that's a cute cameo, and that's all.
No, I thought about it the whole damn time.
I thought about it too. I'm like, she's supposed to come up.
That's all I thought about
it. Mitsuda wasn't there either. Okay.
Who wasn't
She's
there?
not involved in this DLC at all, so this is not about her. And I'll leave it at this comment.
Who'd you say, Chris?
Nia. Nia's not in the DLC at all. We know that I expected Nia and M's conversation to happen at least, even if they zoomed forward. Because, I mean, we zoomed forward 1,000 years to see the planets remerge. So, they could have done a zoom forward. We see nothing. Nothing. Yeah. Okay, Melly is not even in it. We couldn't have any of the conversations. We couldn't see a flashback with that. Okay, sure.
With the kind of shit that happened in this DLC, I wouldn't be surprised if whatever the next Xeno thing is just oh, here's a flashback to this happening. I'm like, well, where the fuck was that before? I would not doubt it. It would not.
I think they're done. I think they're done with all these
I think they are done with this arc, but with how they've handled the structure of this, it would not surprise me if they retroactively address random shit like that.
No, that's what I mean. I don't know. I'm kind of giving up hope on them answering anything else at this point.
I mean, same. I'm not holding my breath, but I said, I thought it was more I was always on that part with the thought of, it feels more like it's just there for a cameo than it is for that.
Yeah.
We're falling into the same trap as the we did with Xenosaga way back when, I think, in some ways.
We've mentioned Xenoblade X, we've mentioned Xenosaga, we've mentioned Gears. You're going to call the fans. Stop. We do not want Xeno fans listening. They are rabid. Stop it.
Yeah, that's definitely not what this podcast is for.
No, get away.
We don't want any listeners.
No.
But if you're here and listening to us, thank you.
Smash that like button.
We love you.
Hopefully I haven't blocked you on Twitter already.
But,
Hideki Kamiya of this podcast, Justin.
I guess some of my big questions, are, what happened to Pyra and Mithra?
I also have that question, but...
Yeah.
I feel like it's summed up in a very unfortunate, vague answer.
I also dislike, I have a really hard time in my head, bringing Xenoblade 2's world into the, what became Ionios, because what happened to the Blade driver system? Did that just not exist anymore?
Well, I mean, technically, wasn't that destroyed at the end? It was implied to be.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
That's how I took it.
I kind of took it that way too. Yeah, because blades
it's
are
his final gift to the world. He was basically sending everything off. I don't think Pyra and Mithra could have separated if the blade system was as it is, to be honest.
Yeah, the blades just became their own people and integrated with the rest of the people in Blade 2 from what I kind of gathered.
I'm now curious if y'all are going to mention something so I can go into my crackpot theory, but I'll wait to see if y'all mention it. Go on.
And then, like, what are blades in Ionius are just different in general. Like, wait, what even were
Glimmer
blades?
just having the pneumocore crystal?
Yeah.
Well, the pneumocore crystal also exists on Matthew's fist.
I mean, okay, with Glimmer, it seemed just like a hereditary thing almost, but, like,
I know. Blades do not exist in the same way as it did in Ionius. They seem to have the strength of blades, because we know that Agnians are drastically stronger than Kabesis.
Agnians also don't call themselves Homs. I mean...
Yeah. But that's pretty much about where I think it cut off at that point, to be honest. I don't think they were meant to be blades any more than that they had higher powers. And I think once the ending of 2 happens, that entire blade system basically disintegrated and somewhat leveled everyone out, was how I took it.
Yeah, I need to, like, rewatch the cutscenes of 2.
They kind of do this
I don't know if
everyone is made of ether anyway in the first place, so...
I don't know if I got that the blade system was destroyed at the end of 2.
I guess my question is, how does it continue? Yeah. Like, how would the blade... I think that's really how I took it. It's less that they implied that, and I was more just like, I think they're trying to tell us there's no way this can continue with what they set up. But that's another issue of they don't say it outright, and that's fine. It's fine. That's like the theme of this episode.
Well, I mean, there's also like the Cloud Sea itself at the end of 2 just like seems to dissipate, and without that, it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
When we find out what blades are kind of made up of,
honestly, even before that,
and even before, yeah.
The world tree is no longer there. So what purpose do they serve? Where are they sending that data to? The Aegis,
even the Titans
specifically, Nuka doesn't exist. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know, and that's. I'm sorry, I sound like I'm getting heated. I promise you, you're.
No, you're not. I know. I'm just like it's kind. I mean, I agree with you. It's like there's so much that at the end of Blade 2, it just kind of like ceases to be that way because that's not how things work anymore because we completely disrupted the system. That it's just. It's not that they explain it, it's just that it's hard to see how it could go on with what they set up in the first place.
Well, back to where's Pyra and Mithra? I'm assuming they're in Origin with everyone else? Question mark?
That was that's my assumption. The question is more around how does Origin choose who gets to not be stuck inside it, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, they explain it, but it's not a good explanation. They technically, explain it, but it's the most roundabout, generic JRPG answer they have, where they basically, we have a reason to be here. So we're here. And it's like, what was the reason no one else was here?
Did Alpha say, they're fine?
Not in the cycle? Because before the DLC, the way that I took it is anyone who is, between the ages of, 10, or I guess anyone under, a kid. Because kids are very easy to manipulate. They're very easy to form. They don't have their own thoughts, or they have thoughts, but, they're still building who they are as a person, so it's very easy to imprint on them different ideals.
That was when the second Impact hit, so all the kids that were born that year are just, yeah.
But I'm just now the DLC just says, it's because they have a reason to be here. What the fuck does that mean? What does that mean? Whatever, it's fine. Sometimes I want answers to things, but then they give me answers, and they're just like that, and I'm like, that's not an answer. Maybe I didn't want you to say anything.
Well, partner, we like to call that something about this planet.
God. How many times... Put a counter in at this point.
Well, okay. Well, at this point, do we want to get into the whole Chapter 5 mess and what that means going forward, possibly?
Can I make one more point on Origin, and we can skip the rest of it entirely if needed?
Yeah,
okay.
That's fine.
Go ahead.
I think Origin, was the biggest point of confusion in Xenoblade 2, partly because they explain it in a 2-minute cutscene where they're being kind of vague. And a lot of it until then was theorizing, but I want to say how much I appreciate the fact that instead of having to wave things off because Origin magic, I can wave things off because of Conduit magic now. It's basically the same type of answer, but it's an answer rather than just, it's a new thing with magical powers.
I was kind of just swept away in Xenoblade 2 by the spectacle of that part in general, so I was willing to hand wave it more.
Pretty much. I really appreciate that they actually did that. Because they really could have left it as is. I think they could have approached everything else and not had connected it to that at all. They could have made another antagonist, just like how Z has nothing to do with anything Xenoblade or Conduit or anything like that.
Yeah.
They could have just done something else entirely, and they didn't. And they went out of their way to recontextualize that. And honestly, having replayed the base game after replaying 3, it does so much for the story of the base game that 3 is now my favorite of the series, 100% because of the recontextualization that it did. Mostly about Origin, because Origin was my biggest issue with 2, but as a whole.
Yeah.
So, and that's pretty much all I had to say on Origin. Everything else is pretty much what we already talked about, I think.
Yeah, we still, end of the day, we still don't really know how Origin works, other than it's their kind of Deus Ex Machina for things, in some ways. Yeah. And also it resembles the Lifehold in its functions in some ways, but how it chooses what's not there and what is there is like the Deus Ex Machina part.
It's a lot like the Merkaba, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's so much. There's just like, that's a part that it's like, we can figure out a lot of stuff around it, but we can't figure it out. Yeah.
Alright, y'all said connected. Are we establishing the connection?
I don't know about that. Let's list some evidence.
Chapter 5 had some stuff. Should we list evidence, or should we react first? Because I feel like maybe all of us could use a collective moment of holy shit.
Yeah, I think a lot of us had a moment with that reveal.
Raise your hand if you expected them to do literally any of that.
I certainly didn't.
Wait, are we talking about which part?
The radio broadcast.
Oh, the radio! The radio, yes. Oh, well.
Radio.
No, past that. The radio on its own is insane. Like, references aside, I'm 99% certain that what was on that radio, they were basically like, hey, the next game we're making? Pay attention to this. Theorize for like 5 years, and we'll get back to you with some different version. And what they introduced, you're telling me humanity made it off of Earth this entire fucking time? I thought everything just ended and we had a whole new... What?
Yeah, that's where the X stuff comes in a little bit too, is like, if it were connected, that would be like an easy place to be like, oh yeah, Elma's the one who came and warned them and got them off there, and that was how they led to X. But like at the same time, I'm like, I'm not really sure that's what happened, but it'd be easy to write that in with what you did with the radio. Also, also I think that based on that part of the game where you're in the neighborhood, the next Xeno game is actually just going to be Sims. Anyway, no.
Thank God, it's finally about time. They can make money off of DLC by making a new expansion pack every 2 days.
Yeah, exactly. Sims 5, Xeno.
Okay, so like, my gut reaction to Chapter 5 was, holy shit, this is so cool.
Yeah, surreal, awesome, I loved it.
But the more I think about it, the less thrilled I am about it. Mm-hmm. And the reason why is because, like, I guess I'm really
anxious real quick.
What's that?
I said I went from excited to anxious pretty quick.
Yeah, because I think, like, I'm starting to get really sick of this thing they keep doing where they hint at something, right? And it sounds interesting, and then there's just no follow-up to it, or there is a follow-up to it, and there's just, like, a massive gap, and you're just like, well, how did we get from point A to point B here? Yeah. So, I see this, I'm like, that's cool, but is anything even going to happen about this?
That's fair.
Well, this is where I think that, and we've had this discussion many times.
We have.
I think if you handle this one of 2 ways, one is going to lead to a lot of disappointment in future years. One of them is going to lead to really cool theorizing, regardless of what happens.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is mental gymnastics trying to connect all these games together. Even if we just go, and I don't mean that as in they are canon. They aren't canon. At the end of the day, I don't care. I have a job. I have things going on. I'm not going to dedicate actual energy to this. However, it is a lot easier to look at this as a common origin point where things may have splintered off of so that all these series can result possibly from the same thing.
Yeah.
Rather than, Xenoblade happened. Xenosaga happened right after that. Xenogears happened right after that. And trying to go through all these contradictions. Because at the end of the day, people have made more contradictions than Glimmer has story moments. Like, it's a long list.
Yeah, and like, I'm also in a place of...
I don't know.
The reasons
I'm more on the anxious side than the excited side at this point. Mostly because I'm not a fan of the conversations that are happening after this Chapter 5.
On the fan side of things, definitely, it's more.
There's
anxious,
been a lot that I've been seeing people on Twitter being like, "Oh my god, they confirmed the Xenosaga remastered with this." Like, no, they
didn't.
I'll tell you my excitement around this, and it's purely aesthetic. I'm gonna be honest here. It's not logical by any means. At this point, I got more questions answered than I thought I would, and maybe I went in with a low expectation, but I thought it was really cool that they answered the questions they did. I'm okay with moving on. I'm just excited that there is potential. This isn't necessarily going to happen, but for something set in a more Xenosaga-esque, or Xenoblade X-esque, harder sci-fi direction for the future of the series. Aesthetically is where I'm most excited about where this series could go from here. Because
I'm not sure about a lot about this ending. I think the ending confirmed that the sci-fi is their goal from here forward.
I hope that is the case, because that's what if they're going to make another world that I want to explore, I want it to be that. I want that from them, and I think that's where they really excel at times too. I think don't get me wrong. I think they've excelled at this for years, and I think they've done a really good job with it at blending this whole fantasy and sci-fi thing. But I would love to see them take a slightly different direction again and go a little harder on the sci-fi elements and let me explore more of that, because they've proven that they're good at making that kind of world as well, and I'm just interested to see a change in that. And that's purely aesthetic. That's all it is. Wherever the story leads, I think that they're kind of starting new in some ways, but connecting it loosely, and that is fine with me.
Well, one thing that this area did that I really like is that it made the land of Morathra a lot more interesting.
Exactly, I think so too. Which I already loved that land because of what.
Yeah, it was cool. That was one of the cool areas in that game, and so it was kind of cool to be oh, so that's what land of Morathra was supposed to represent. Interesting. I like that.
I had kind of pieced together, but it's fun. We keep talking about things not being outright answered and stuff like that. No, this DLC did so much more than I thought we were ever going to get about Earth. We got outright confirmation of the Siren lore, which was only on the back of a model kit for years. It was never in the game.
Yeah.
They never name-dropped the other authorities or anything like that. They dove into the authority figures. They dove into various different scientific happenings at the time. I expected nothing. I thought they were going to show Trinity Processor and move on. Fully.
I didn't even expect the Trinity Processor.
Well,
I kind of did.
The trailer. Only after the trailer. I had no expectation before then.
Yeah, okay, after the trailer, yes. But I was just I didn't expect just the full... Like I said, the thing that was debated on for so many years, I didn't expect it to just be dropped in conversation it did in that game.
Oh, I was going to say this earlier. I got distracted. On what you said, Nick, regarding changing aesthetic for the future of the series, Takahashi gets bored. He said multiple times in interviews he gets bored and likes to change things up. I honestly, if he does leave behind the sci-fi fantasy mix to the level it is now, not at all shocked.
Yeah, no,
not at all.
It's as things are with Xenoblade now, they feel aesthetically a little more like Xenogears, and I'm looking forward to the future of the series potentially going a little more Xenosaga in terms of aesthetics, if that makes... Well, that should make sense to everybody here.
I think they also feel aesthetically complete at this point. I mean, I feel not as in they can't do more with the series, they can. But I feel we've reached an Ouroboros. We've gone full circle. We've done everything that makes it a satisfying product as is. Yeah. I'm happy.
Takahashi's big in-joke of every game he makes just being a commentary on the state of the games he makes at the same time.
It's just Xenogears 16 at this point, with another statement on his crunch culture.
Yeah.
Has everyone here played all the Xeno games?
No, I need to play Gears. I know about Gears, but I need to play Gears still.
Because when you were all saying about the radio... And that scene, first of all, I'll just pitch in. I really like that scene. But when you were all talking about the radio and what's playing in the background, the only little snippet I got was never played Saga or Gears, was about, the lifeboats or whatever filled up here. I'm like, that's X! But then I'm like, oh, wait, no, it's not. You're not. And I'm like, oh,
to
okay.
Fill you in, they directly name drop Dmitry Yuriev, who is a character is a villain in Xenosaga. Not even just like a huge character in Xenosaga.
Well, I know
It
that
does
the name
open up a can of worms.
the
Well,
name
that-
was familiar too, but other than that, like as for me who had never played Gears of Saga, the radio was like cool, but that was it.
I'm
I
gonna
didn't
be
care.
entirely honest. It's literally just the logo. It's the logo, the name drop, and then the most cope of it all. The blue dot at the end credits that everyone thinks is Cosmo.
Yeah, I was like,
I remember
Whoa.
about that.
I'm gonna be honest, I'm trying not to say it. I know it's in my alias and all that jazz. And I am not team that is Cosmos. Do I want it to be? Yeah. It's not.
Yeah,
It's
I
not.
don't think it is.
I have a rant about that, but
go for
I
it.
don't think it's
No, do it.
let's not get there yet because
Really?
I mean in that scene we had they mentioned Project Exodus.
It's
They
late
mentioned-
enough. We're 2 hours in.
Oh,
I was going to say they mentioned Philadelphia class ship, which was a callback to Xenogears.
Yeah.
And they mentioned the Saviorite rebels, which was basically the Salvatore.
yeah. In Japanese, the Saviorites in Xenoblade 2 are the Salvatore. So back in Xenoblade 2, that was meant to be at least a reference to the Salvatore faction from Saga.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to throw those in there since we were still on that cutscene.
Yeah, and another thing,
That I was Captain
Chris and I
Matthews.
spoke about this briefly, but also
Is it-
like they mentioned
Are you
about,
stealing my comment? I think you're stealing my comment.
perhaps we're talking about July, right?
Oh, never mind. Go ahead. You're good. I can still talk after.
No, we're talking about how they mentioned about the that project where they're going in space in July, and that's kind of July is also where the events of Xenoblade Cross start too, where like the humans leave, and I thought that was kind of cute.
So, my thing on that, and I am, like I said, I am Team Common Origin. I don't think it's worth trying to establish all this stuff. People are going through calendars and they're like, oh, this year, 2054 doesn't have a Wednesday, May 16th. Who says we follow the same calendar in this universe?
I was going to say, this
My
isn't...
thing, I know.
No,
My
it
thing,
would be so.
and hold on, B, you've played X, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, my thing is, if we take the common origin point, it gets a lot easier. And I think X is the best example of that.
Yes.
Technically speaking, X's situation is an emergency exodus trying to escape something. In Xenoblade 3, and therefore 1 and 2, it seems a lot more like a planned expedition of space.
Yeah.
But it doesn't debunk the common origin, because technically speaking, we can just have a difference of what happened with the conduit. We know that in Klaus's world, they had experimented on the conduit. The conduit made it so they reached the scientific know-how they did in less than 100 years from the 20th century. Well, no, 21st century. Because they found it in the early 21st century. Meanwhile, in X, you can rework it as easily as just, oh, the Samarians had the Zohar the whole time, so it wasn't on Earth, so they weren't able to reach that state. Like, if they really want to, they can retcon things to hell and back. But should we as fans be doing that work and stressing ourselves out trying to connect all these games? Because it's
Right.
not worth it, in my opinion.
No,
Like,
No.
but you're going to get that
I mean,
wackadoodle
yeah.
who will.
I mean, unless you just really are about that life, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, as long as you're having, if you're having
if
fun
you're
with
having
it,
fun,
Yeah.
yes.
sure,
Pretty
and you're
much.
not like being negative to other people.
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
No,
exactly.
no, it can't be this way.
Yeah.
Oh, no. That's
Oh,
just
no,
the Northern
no.
Lights.
That's why I mentioned the list of contradictions longer than Glimmer's story involvement. Like, people are going for it, and I think it's valid. But at the same time, I really think there's a common answer that makes everyone get something out of it, where if we just take this as Takahashi is trying to establish that all of these games kind of splintered off of a similar origin point and a bunch of different events happened from that. Kind of like Zelda timeliney, I guess.
I
It's
love the
less
Zelda
brain work.
timeline.
Different conversation.
Yeah, that's for part 2. Okay.
I kind of don't care about the Zelda timeline. It's fine, but whatever.
Well, y'all get to play Tears of the Kingdom, and maybe they'll touch on the timeline. I don't know. I haven't done much story. I've been exploring too
I
much
haven't
and making
either.
Koroks fly into the sky.
Yep, same.
But back to
well,
this.
yeah.
Yes. Back to chapter 5.
So that light
Oh,
was
I was
linked.
going to say something. So, sorry. So,
Kidding.
Justin mentioned he was going to say something, and there was that point that I was going to make. And
I
this
would
is
really like
on the
it to
radio.
be Cosmos, though. I would really like it to be.
Same.
I think Takahashi dropped a light bulb into space, and that's what it was.
Oh, okay. So, okay. I like when I beat this, I was talking to David about it, and I was having a bit of a breakdown because my gut reaction was like, oh my gosh, I've been this Xeno fan this entire time that's like, no, they're not all connected, and then it's like all these references and Easter eggs. I'm like, oh, what if I've been wrong this entire time?
That's how they get you.
But then I like think back to like, okay, then well, why did we have Cosmos and Telos in Xenoblade 2 if then but how is she there, but then now she's coming back?
Recurrence.
And, I
But
don't know.
also, I'm not thinking too hard about any of that at all. Like, I'm
That's fair.
really not
Those are the
thinking...
mental gymnastics I was talking about.
Especially about the blade
fair.
thing, yeah, because the blades were pretty much established to manifest as anything and everything in some ways.
Well, even the world tree is just Google. It's a database of all the data. So basically, it's like Googled Cosmos. The data is in the world tree to recreate.
Okay. Putting it that way makes me feel better.
And
the
like,
world tree be like, I can surpass copyright law right now.
Holy.
Really quick. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you go on.
This is because we talked about the radio and we talked about the slavery rights, and this is the only thing I want to mention on this because it ties back into Niall's character. As that scene is going on, we were paying attention to radio, but in the background, Niall is talking about this being a paradise, this being the promise of the world that Alpha can create.
Yes.
Not only do we know what happens, but we're also listening to the radio. We have new context for why the experiment happens. A human rights bill for this group was shut down. This is the group that was then rebelling in the war in Xenoblade 2. So not only was it just random science, this was a war over literal human rights, which is so on point for the series.
They were doing a lot more with that radio than just references while she was explaining, no, this is a better world, and it's like, are you listening to the radio right now?
Yeah.
Irony at its best.
Yep.
Which, probably around this point, I'll insert that whole radio conversation, because Chris found a link, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes.
Thanks whoever isolated that.
Yes, thank you. I will have that in the notes, and I'll put it in here.
Good afternoon. This is 11 News. Wednesday, May 16th. Weather in the Radamanthus Authority is fair. It is 24 degrees centigrade, 56% humidity. Continuing yesterday's placid highs, the day promises to be pleasant. Today's news will be delivered by me, Sienna Morgan, with additional analysis by our political correspondent, Barry Crow-Lee. Here's our first story. Well, Barry, don't you think this weather we're having is just perfect?
I do. I think the spotless sky today will make it easy for us all to celebrate last night's momentous occasion.
Well then, let's talk more about that. Most of our listeners know what we're talking about, but we'll recap for any latecomers. At midnight on the 16th, the first Radamanthus spaceport saw the launch of Earth-Life Colonization Project's 8th mothership, the Icarus, taking 480,000 settlers to the Eta Carina Nebula in the Carina Sagittarius arm of the Milky Way. The Icarus is the 8th interstellar colony ship dispatched as part of Project Exodus, bringing the total number of colonists sent out to the stars to 3 million. The coalition government plans to send out ships 9 to 13 in the course of this year. The 9th vessel, departing in July, heralds a new generation of ultra-long-range colony ships, known officially as Philadelphia-class motherships. Each vessel boasts a capacity of up to 1.5 million people, meaning that if all goes to plan, the project will send a total of 10 million people out into the great beyond. Now for our next story. It concerns the Saviorite Human Rights Protection Bill brought to Congress last summer. Earlier today, we heard the 13 authorities have petitioned against the proposal. And as the Justice Ministry's 7th Special Commission on Human Rights debates once more on its validity, the possibility that the proposal may be scrapped seems more and more likely. The proposed measure sparked a lot of public debate, so many will be watching the government and the Commission very closely.
There was much apprehension about the bill failing to make it all the way through the legislative process. And indeed, that seems to be exactly what's happening right now.
Indeed. And now, Dmitry Yuriev, councilperson from the Minos Authority, has issued a statement concerning the matter at hand. Please stay with us.
And also, back to the radio, like, why did they go out of the, like, they went out of their way to get permission from Bandai Namco to use the Vector logo on
So
that
that's
radio.
the weird thing. Not only did they have their way to get permission. Okay, so the Vector logo is in Xenoblade 2. It's on Cosmos' bed when you awaken her.
Yeah.
They're not in
it is there.
Yeah, it
but
is.
they're not
It
in the
is.
IP page in Xenoblade 2. So why are they on the IP page? And why is Xenosaga on that page?
I think because
in Xenoblade 3?
I think because Dimitri.
But his name is different. It's spelled different.
Is
so
it?
technically, it's D-I, and Xenosaga is D-N.
I don't think it's spelled differently in Japanese.
Probably not in
though.
Japanese. No,
It's
yeah,
probably not spelled differently in Japanese.
is
I
probably.
don't know, it's weird. Why would they have to cite Saga for those, but not for Cosmos?
It might be also Nintendo of Europe thing.
True. It's weird. It's not weird as in it's implying things. It's weird as in what are y'all doing?
Like,
What's he cooking?
and like I said, like I'm not gonna try to even attempt to think about it that hard. Like,
Yeah.
because
best.
like, and I just want to address like retcons really quick because Xenoblade 2, like the conduit being there, like, and it not being there in the original Xenoblade game, like I wasn't mad about that.
Because it was. Cool.
I was actually, I was really happy because like that's like it, and it's kind of like what's like kind of being done here is like, you know, like Monolith Soft talking to like old fans about stuff, and that's kind of like what I like about all of this. Not necessarily like how it all connects together. I really don't care about that much.
Takahashi,
But-
like, I want to leave the past behind. Also, Takahashi, like, that was pretty cool. I should bring that back in.
I think Takahashi went out of his way to, at minimum, acknowledge that his fans exist, acknowledge he appreciates his fans,
Mm-hmm.
and if he can't do anything else with it, that is a pretty comfortable point to leave it at.
Yeah.
If he can do more with it, great. I will say, while I don't think this is indicative of a Xenosaga port or anything, I will say it's a little mean to do these references if we aren't going to get some sort of port to modern consoles. But I think if anything, it shows that maybe there is a stronger relationship between Monolith and Bandai regarding the Xenosaga series at this point. Because, I mean, it's never weakened entirely, but it's also, I mean, they went to a different company.
Well,
Worked with them directly in that same series.
I was gonna say Nintendo and Bandai Namco, Namco aren't exactly on terrible terms either.
No.
But,
I mean, they help with Smash.
yeah,
Like,
exactly. Like,
so
it's
it's
gotta
nice
help.
to see. It's just really nice to see.
It is. I agree.
Whether it is indicative of the future, whether it is indicative of relationships, whether it is indicative of the ability to legally have references. It is just nice to see, and it's very appreciated. Regardless, I don't think anyone who has played all these games did not watch that entire ending segment and lose their shit and appreciate that they at least lost their shit.
You know,
I-
that's what I'm there for. If it's not logical in the end, the more I think about it, that's fine. I gotta go in with the expectation of this is a reference, not necessarily a logical stepping stone nor a point of lore.
Mm-hmm.
And what matters is the emotional reaction it got out of me from the get-go.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of goes, I keep saying this, Xenoblade 3 I think is a lot more about the emotions than the inner workings, and I think that the way that they have that ending, I think that encapsulates it best. I don't think it's supposed to be that Xenosaga is canon, that all this is canon, that this is the future of the series.
I don't either.
I really think it's about the emotional side of things, and if there's more, great. But the thing that I can say for sure is the focus was the emotional side of things, while also laying out the lore. You know, the radio was the lore. The
For
connections,
me-
not as much.
For me, it felt like it implied something a little bit stronger than just like, oh, here it is. You know,
I think so, but I think that ties into the future of the series we don't know yet.
yeah.
That's also why I keep saying I think Common Origin Point works a lot better, because technically they can all be connected. This is a series that recurrence has been dropped in. Like, easy answer. But if it doesn't happen, am I going to be shocked or am I going to be sad? Well, maybe sad. I will probably be sad. I mean, I'm already sad. We're Xeno fans. We're always sad. But, like, I don't know. Everyone's fighting on Twitter and you're all just talking about things. And I'm just like, y'all, listen to the radio and just move along.
I
We're
don't.
good.
Yeah, I really don't. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I really don't care about any of that. Like, it's like
We can all talk about
Like-
it.
like, I can enjoy this moment after having been a Xenosaga fan for so long as a moment for Xenosaga fans. I don't have to take that away from the Xenoblade X fans that got a Xenoblade X moment out of it. Like, and like,
I got both.
I got something from like every Xeno game in this DLC, and that's what made me really extremely happy about it. And I don't have to take any of those moments away from anybody to be happy about it.
I enjoyed the game.
Yeah. Very good point. Very good.
So
point.
yeah, like you said, at the end of the day, just enjoy it for what it is. Regardless, if you want to go on about it, that's fine. Good. But like, if you want to like do all this theory crafting, point is, no one is going to be happy with any of that stuff about it until happy with any kind of like answer they can come up. Well, maybe you'll be happy with your own answer you come up with for yourself, but nobody's going to be happy until they address whatever they decide to address in the future, and even then people are going to be also unhappy because they're going to introduce something new that leaves you out of things.
Yeah, you can't please everyone.
Yeah, exactly. You can't. But
and you don't have to like every piece of this. Like, I would say like a lot of like the Xenoblade 3 stuff, like the stuff that it like tied in, like that necessarily wasn't for me, but like it didn't take away from it being like a really special moment for like the Xenosaga stuff. That felt really special.
For me as a fan, like me in particular, like I personally love these random droppings of threads to other things that may be or could be, because I like media that has me like guessing and thinking about it beyond the point, but at the same time I get that that's not always for everyone, and I get how that stuff can be very annoying, especially when there's little things that it's like, it feels like it should be easy enough to answer this, but you refuse to. So I get it. It's a bit of a tease, but I kind of look at it in terms of like, oh, well, this is kind of how life is at times. You're not going to know the answer to everything, and I kind of feel like that's not the worst way you could go about things. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I get my enjoyment in the moment. I get my enjoyment out of thinking of what potentially could be. I'm not going to let it ruin my life, regardless.
This is also an entire meta-series based on reworking ideas that came from a side book for a PS1 RPG. Like, we may genuinely just get concepts reused from the games they're referencing. It may not be that Xenosaga is connected. It may genuinely just be there is a man named Dmitry Yuriev that existed in this time period instead. It could be that they're reusing Eternal Occurrence. Exactly. Like, this is not abnormal for the series in any way whatsoever. And again, I keep saying this, the mental gymnastics people are doing, I'm like, y'all, you're fine. You're not doing anything wrong. I just feel like it's a waste of energy. Like...
Oh, so I'm trying to think. It's like I don't have a segue for this, but there was something that I was holding back until later in the chat about this stuff relating to Matthew's connection. What do you guys want to get into next exactly? I gotta know when I should.
Well, wait, like back to the Xenosaga thing. Actually, I wanted to ask you about it, Nick, because like you didn't finish Xenosaga that long ago.
Yeah, it's only been a couple of years, I think.
Was it a couple?
I think we finished around the same time, actually.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, as a latecomer to the series, Xenosaga 3 is one of my favorite games in the series, hands down.
Yeah.
Easily.
Same.
Like, if not for, like, just that I think it handles its pacing and story... Well, pacing in the story, like, towards the end especially, does get a little bit, quickened in a lot of ways. Don't get me wrong, but, like, as far as its like gameplay and pacing, as far as that stuff goes, it didn't like blow me. It didn't blow me away on the gameplay front in some ways, but like it was very satisfying to play, in pretty much every way I could think of. Like compared to the other parts of the series where there was like, oh well, I like this, but I didn't like this. It was like I was left wanting for like some ideas that were in the earlier games in the series, but 3 was like one that it was like, well, everything that they did do worked, and it worked very well, and I really liked that about that. But aside from that, like, story concluding the way it did, I did feel was satisfying, even though it didn't necessarily answer everything, and it left a lot of like open-ended bits to it, here and there.
I feel like on that, I think one thing about that, there's a whole like guidebook you can technically read to get answers for Xenosaga. I don't think we're gonna get something like that for 3. Like,
yeah, I don't think so either. And like, I know what you're talking about. I've seen a lot of the extra materials around that stuff.
More than me. I haven't even read it.
But yeah, there's the perfect guide and the ODM for Saga.
I don't like that stuff. Doesn't bother me.
I mean, yeah, like it's extra.
It's extra. It explains. It ties up a few loose ends for sure. It doesn't necessarily bother me that it wasn't there. And I will say, I just felt like thematically is where a lot of the stuff hits me like the hardest. Is like where it's like, oh, you're not setting out to necessarily answer this question, but these like this is a game tackling all these philosophical elements. If there were a right answer to any of this, it wouldn't be what it is in the first place. So it hits a little bit different for me in that way. Like, and I felt similar things about like Cross X. Like I do think that X could definitely been a bit clearer on certain things, and it definitely feels like there needs to be a sequel to it, for more reasons than one. Because I want that.
It's called Xenoblade 3.
Yeah, exactly. No, I want that gameplay back too, and some parts of that world.
I just want giant robots playable again.
Well,
also, Nick, do you mind if...
Not just the robots. I thought Mira was one of the most interestingly crafted worlds I've seen in a video game, period. And that's like one of the big things that keeps me coming back, is just that world is incredible. It's fascinating. It's
fun to
explore. A world that I love looking at, love exploring. Just like it fires on all cylinders. And
it just feels like they put every rock in its place.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, what was I saying? Yeah, okay. What was the full extent of your question, David? It was like,
well, I was just asking you, like, because you didn't beat it that long ago, like, and how did you feel about, like, maybe the implications of the ending, if you felt there were any implications of the DLC?
Oh, compared to that, okay, I see what you're saying. I don't make any like real connections other than thematically. I think it would be very cool if that light falling from the sky were like Cosmos from the end of Xenosaga 3, but at the same time, I'm not holding my breath for that, and I feel like even if it is Cosmos, it's not exactly in the same context as it was at the end of Xenosaga 3. That's my personal thoughts on that, because even if he is like, yes, if they find a way to be like, yes, this directly ties into that, they're going to probably retcon some stuff and change some stuff around, and it may matter that it's in the past of it, but it won't matter what it is for the future of the series necessarily as much. And it's not as if they've not retreaded a lot of this ground thematically. So, I mean, I'm there for whatever it is, unless it's just atrocious for one reason or another, but I think they've gained my trust on that point, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah,
I don't know what it's going to be, and I don't want to really make any assumptions of what it's going to be.
Yeah,
like, I am excited for it nonetheless.
It's hard for me because it's like I feel like Xenoblade X works more like maybe from like a modern audience perspective than like maybe Xenosaga does. So if they like retread any of that, it's like there would probably have to be significant changes.
Yeah, I think so too. I think even if they did like get the licensing and directly tie this in, it would just be like, we have to rework this to make it fit, kind of thing.
And on that level, it's like, who would the audience be? I guess, like.
Well,
on some of that stuff.
I think the answer to that,
and that's what made this like DLC like really hard for me, because it was like all of these like things that, you know, all of these like nods and stuff, whatever you want to call them, connections, and it's like, oh well, you know, like that was like so long ago. Like,
well, yeah, but that's the other interesting thing about this DLC. Like, everything else put aside, I'd say I would agree with like what a lot of reviews and stuff that I looked at for this were like, yeah, this game is a 10. Gameplay wise, all this stuff, the way it ties in, it does so much more than we ever expected of it. And for that, I would be like, to a fan, I guess, unless you're just very bothered by what it doesn't address in some ways or what it kind of skirts over, I feel like this is most likely going to be a 10 out of 10 for you. But this is like one of those 10 out of 10s that you can't recommend to a newcomer. This is a 10 out of 10 because it's such a good payoff for like long-term fans. This is not a 10 out of 10 because you can jump in like without playing 3 or even 1 and 2 in some way. Like, I think that you could play 3 and play this, and I think you'd be missing a shitload. But
well, it spoils everything. It shows all of it in the credits.
Because it spoils and more than just that. But like, it's that much more rewarding if you've played all of them. Like, and that's not, and you don't even have to have played like you're definitely going to make different connections depending on if you also played X or Saga, but you're like, what do they mean? Not even the people that have played those know. I certainly don't. Like, it's so, like, as long as you've played the other Xenoblades, this is like the ultimate payoff. If you've not, I don't know. I think gameplay-wise, this will be a lot of fun for you still. But I think story-wise, you're going to be real confused.
Yeah, it was just really interesting for the moments of the DLC for like the really older fans.
I think there's a lot of them that I'm like, well, like, look at what B went through. Is like, you're just not gonna know the name. You're just gonna completely.
Actually, on that, B, you haven't played the rest of the games. Did you actually get much out of like chapter besides the radio lore? How do you feel as someone who didn't play the rest of the series about the ending itself? Because I feel like, for me, it kind of feels like it rode off not only the hype of that, but also kind of the hype of the whole series. So I'm genuinely curious your perspective on that.
This is why my joke was, when we posted that picture of Matthew pointing, was just like, I just repurposed that into Xenosaga fans when they see a light falling from the sky.
No! If I may, really quick, I was going to talk about that.
Are you going to let...
the end...
Were you going to let B say something?
Oh, B's not here. I noticed B was
Yeah, B muted for some reason.
Oh, okay.
I was just going to ask when she got back, if anything. But I think I kind of implied this earlier, where I kind of care about Xenoblade 3 a lot more on an emotional level. And y'all talking about Xenosaga kind of got me realizing I really do care about these games a lot more on, like, the personal, emotional level than I remotely do on the lore level. So as interesting as this stuff is, the ending kind of didn't follow up on a lot of that, actually, which is kind of odd.
Well, I think that's important, too, though, because, like, if it doesn't hit you on an emotional level, who cares about the lore at the end of the day as much?
Exactly.
Like, I don't know how much I agree, though, because it's like...
I'm not saying it's not part of it, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, like, it's just... Well, I was, like, talking, like, specifically, like, Chris, and, like, Saga 3 is, like, I won't get, like, that much into it, but it's, like, probably the most important game to me, that I've ever played, probably. Just, like, when I played it, you know, I played it at the... I just feel like I played that game at the right place at the right time. Like, that game does things for me that Xenoblade 1 probably does for, like, Justin.
Yeah, I was going to say,
so,
I feel like a lot of people connect to Xenoblade 1 in a similar way.
And so, like, when I finished 3, and, those credits were rolling, and, you see Cosmos, and, there's the song, maybe tomorrow's playing, and it's like there was always this feeling that, like, in the future, maybe, like, they could talk about Xenosaga, they could do something with Xenosaga, or, like, and, like, I mean, it didn't have to happen right now, but, like, that game has a very emotional ending, and, like, this feels like that promise. This feels like the answer to that.
Nice.
Like from a thematic standpoint, this is like, maybe this game doesn't answer everything, but maybe now Xenoblade fans have that too.
Yeah.
That, like, and, like, that's how I feel, like,
so
about this ending.
It's funny you say that, so yes, like, I've mentioned many times that, Blade 1 meant a lot to me, and this is coming from somebody who had played the other games before Blade 1. Playing this game, this DLC rather, felt incredibly bittersweet to me, because, okay, so a lot's happened in my life since when I first played Xenoblade 1, and when I played Xenoblade 1, I think back to who I was back then when that game came out, and getting to Yesterdale, and then you're hearing, like, the Colony 9 music playing, it took me back and made me just really reflect on just my whole journey with both just the series and also just me as a person, and, like, all the things I've been through since then. So, for as much as I can nitpick this DLC, and believe me, I can, I have this episode.
And my DMs.
Yeah, and in Chris's DMs. There's a lot of that. I can say, I think David is right in that, like, this is kind of that moment for me. Like, this is kind of an important thing. It really feels like this is just a way to cap off that journey. And, like, the ending when you're seeing all, like, scenes from the other games, and then that song playing too, it really did something to me. Yeah, I felt that.
Bringing back Joe and Hog was,
they really did that.
And also, I'm gonna say this too. So just to kind of bring it full circle, and this is kind of ridiculous. So when I beat Gears years ago, right? It was a late night. I was up very late trying to beat Deus. I kept dying against him, and I finally did it. Super late, and I just remember watching the ending and hearing the song play, and just sitting on my bed watching my monitor. So here I am, like, okay, that might have been, I think I did that, I beat that game, I want to say maybe 2008-ish, around that time. So here I am in 2023. I'm in the same room that I was in when I finished Gears, sitting on the same bed, playing the game in handheld mode, watching the ending, listening to that song as I, nod off to sleep.
You made an Ouroboros.
It came full circle. And it's funny because it was late and I was playing the game. I was like, all right, I'm going to bring this into the room and play it in bed. I didn't expect to finish the game, but then as I realized, like, oh no, I'm actually at the end. I was like, you know what? We're going to make this go full circle. I finished Gears 1 in this room while sitting on his bed. I'm going to finish Blade while sitting in this bed in the same room. We're just going to do it again. And that was cool. I like that.
I will say, I got into the series with Blade 1 through Dragon Convoy. Got into it, wasn't, like, super connected to it. Then I eventually got into Xenosaga, got very emotionally connected to it. But I played these in 2019. I got exposed to the series, like, 2017. This is all new. However, regardless of that, I still had a lot of love for Saga 3. I think, after the DLC especially, I think Xenoblade 3 is actually satisfying for me what Xenosaga fans felt back in the day of feeling at home in a game. Having that importantness in a game, and that, like, when the credits roll, just, you know. And it's weird, because I've talked about, especially with you, Justin, you know I have issues with 3. And it's still, I think it's that emotional aspect. The emotional human levels of 3, when they hit, fucking hit. And I think this DLC tried its best to do that as well.
Everything kind of built to this through this part of the saga. And, like, I say that as someone who originally played the first game back in, like, 2011 or something. Like, the first Xenoblade game. And then I retroactively went back. And honestly, a lot of it I didn't go back to until after Xenoblade 2. Like, I played it in 2017, whenever it came out. Or I started playing it, and I got really into that one. And it got me to take a second look back. Even though I really enjoyed the first one, I remember it was like kind of my gateway into playing more, like, RPGs in general. Because before that, I was mostly, like, other Nintendo games and stuff. Like, platformers and whatever they made in a lot of cases. And I was trying to branch out at that point in my life. And that was one of the things that I tried because I was very interested whenever I read in Nintendo Power about, like, the world and stuff. And while I was very much into the world, like, and I really liked how the story went, I think Xenoblade 2, coming back to it, where it really hit me as, like, this is one of my favorite series.
That's when it grabbed us by the neck, basically.
Yeah, basically. It was like, oh, I didn't realize all this was going to be as, like, big and connected and just everything as it was. And that's what really just, like, got me, like, yep, time to go back and play Xenogears and Saga and all this stuff. So, like, I guess, like, I had quite a few years to get into, like, the various other parts of it. And like, Xenoblade X was another big part of it, but, like, while I got that when it released, and I was very excited about the world and stuff, it was not a game I actually really went back to and fully learned and got as invested in it as I was until after Xenoblade 2. So, yeah, but I'm kind of like, it's at this point, regardless of what happens, like, I love that it was a bittersweet ending to it in some ways. I just like bittersweet endings in general. But just how much they did, like, it's very rewarding in a big way. And I'm much happier that I have played through everything now. Because I don't think it would have hit me quite as hard as it did if not for that, in a lot of ways. I think it still would have hit me pretty hard. Like, that Chapter 5 beginning scene in this DLC was surreal and just something else, and just, like, the kind of shit I just, like, eat for breakfast. That I love that shit.
I like how both Chapter 5s in base game Xenoblade 3 and the DLC for Xenoblade 3 did nothing but break the fans in half. One of them for reasons, the other their brain being melted.
Yeah. And that's for me, that's the best kind of thing. Like, I don't care if it makes sense at the end of it. Whenever I make something of it, I don't care if it makes as much sense at the end of it, as long as it hit me, like, right then, with, like, that big moment like that, to the degree it did. And, like, you know, within reason. I don't like things to completely drop, you know, their head into their asshole chasm or something, but I like it when they do cool shit like that.
You know, I was gonna say, Nick had the privilege of hearing my reaction to Chapter 5 in real time.
I was in call with Justin, who's like, what? No! What? No! What? What we doing?
Yeah, I was yelling.
What are you cooking?
What is... Let him cook.
Let him cook. Oh my god. I love that one picture that's been going around with Takahashi.
I have a picture that I want for the thumbnail. I will send it to you guys.
The pan on fire?
Hold on.
The wok on fire?
Yeah.
But I will say, regardless of where the series goes, the impact the series has on me cannot be understated. One is a great 100%. Game, but 1 is not my favorite game in any ways whatsoever. Mm-hmm. But 2 and 3 would not have made me... 2 specific... Now, I've been on this episode many times. Y'all know my thoughts on 2. Y'all know I have a lot of issues with 2. But 2 would not have made me bawl like a baby the way it did if it did not have the impact it did. And 3 would not have made me bawl as a baby if it did not have the impact it did. So regardless of what happens, I have the games that I got. I'm happy as is. I was happy even before this DLC with the product we got. And it was just a nice little cherry on top. So regardless of the future outcome, I think I can say that this entire Xenoblade as is ends. I'm pretty happy. I think this was a good end.
I am too. Like I'm like one of those. Is like 2 is definitely a very flawed game, but God, when it hits like a truck in an isekai anime.
I cried at the end.
Yeah. No. Spoilers. I'm not going to be spoilers, but when Poppy. Yeah.
Oh
my
God,
that scene. Was the start of the waterworks.
No, literally, I was fine until then. I was like, I'll be fine. It's not that big of a deal. And then it all just came ricocheting down.
And then I'm like, where's that box of Kleenex at? Where's that box of Kleenex?
It hit just how emotionally connected I was. Like, oh, wow, okay. And then Xenoblade 3 made it even worse before the end of the game, but it's fine.
Okay.
Which we will have a review of that in a later episode.
Yes. We've talked a lot about this, but we'll once we have more people beat the DLC and
we'll talk more.
Kind of sit more on the thoughts of the Xenoblade 3 and the DLC overall, we'll do another discussion.
Was this part of the conversation, the bridging the 3 kind of thing, I guess, in a way?
We kind of did. That was what we were talking about. The connection, but it was baked. There's not a lot to talk about.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just like wondering what else we need, so we should cover here while we're still here. I know we got really...
No, we can leave that for the Xenoblade 3 round.
Well,
yeah.
There is something very
episode.
I meant like in regards to the DLC, because there are a few specific things that I feel like I would still like to mention. Although breathe.
Well, I think we need to wrap this up.
I know we do, but I talked about going back.
1 minute before I go to sleep if needed.
I talked about this going back to the Matthew thing at the end, where it's like, yeah, it's Matthew Vandom, right? And we had talked about earlier in the episode how did Noah connect to all this, and in maybe outside the thing, just him being a Vandom is like the familial connection, yes, and therefore meaning Noah's also a Vandom. But I think it was just supposed to, in the first place, be in kind of like is known because he's the one that changed the cycle, I guess, so to speak, in the first place, and not for the best reasons, but it's like, oh yeah, we've got these connections for like Mio and all that. Whereas Noah's connection, I mean, I think that's the gist of it, is like he's a Vandom and also did some shit. But I did want to mention that at least before, we wrapped up this episode regardless, because I was like, we had talked about like getting into this more and we hadn't actually gotten to it. So
okay.
That was, I don't really have a lot more to say on it, just like that, since we had brought that up earlier.
Sure. I have a good ending point that would really nicely close the conversation as a whole.
Yeah. What's that?
So we know that Xenosaga, a very big theme is that Earth was essentially lost. And the ending of Xenoblade 3, we now have the added context that not only was the Xenoblade 1 and 2 world Earth that was split in half, that Earth physically disappeared from that plane, and since humanity had left, it makes sense that maybe it's regarded in a similar way to Lost Jerusalem. So just more food for thought that they do, in fact, like reusing these concepts a lot.
As soon as you started that, I was like, Lost Jerusalem?
No, it's literally, we found Lost Jerusalem at the end of Xenoblade. There we go. Congratulations. Yeah. We've come full circle.
Yeah.
Well,
I love the part where Alvis said, "I'm sorry, Shulk, all this logic got me acting unwise."
Tyler, don't you ruin my fun.
Well, I liked it when they activated the Xenoblade.
Yeah, you too.
Well, I'm just
Xenoblade Fist this time.
Well, I'm just gonna end on something Robin put in the doc, and he said, "This isn't important at all, but I just think it's funny that Microsoft even forgot about Larithia."
Who?
Who's that?
I don't know.
By that logic, they forgot about a lot of characters, but
I think Bot needs to go back and check the wiki. I don't know who that is.
I don't know
you
who
just
that is.
elucidated that character.
All right. I think we're good now. This was a very good conversation, and made me feel better about certain aspects of it. So thank you guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Also, some of the side characters in the DLC mentioned reading a book about the Bringer of Chaos, so that was fun. Anyway, just came to mind while I was scrolling through the doc. It's not on there. Don't worry. I just thought about it looking over the Zeke thing.
Mm.
There is a book canon in the series about Zeke.
I'd read that book.
Yeah, I would too. It'd be fun.
It'd be fun. Yeah, it'd be really fun.
It's probably a picture book, honestly.
Yep, that's the picture.
I'm not sure which I would want more as a thumbnail, to be honest.
Yes,
they're pretty good competitors.
Well, I'd feel bad about taking that picture without permission, so I might. We'll do something.
I feel like it's in that Twitter realm where if there's no credit on it, it's been passed around a million times. But then the other one does have a credit on it, so you could always message them if you wanted.
I mean, we could Photoshop him shirtless grilling.
Wait, do it. Can I pick? No.
I've got like a picture of Sagat where he's grilling already. I'll just put his head on there.
What's that picture in Mira where they have like Takahashi and he's like got the wine? That one always gets me when it's
which one?
Which one?
Takahashi with why?
Why am I a mod and I have no idea what?
I don't even know. Like that sounds familiar, but I don't know.
We don't have that in Mira. What?
Are you sure that's in Mira?
Well, it's
yeah.
Is
we
it
don't
a
have
sticker?
that.
Oh,
wait. Maybe it's in the Hold on, I will find it before.
Okay. Anyway, we're at the end here. Do you guys want to go around and say what you're working on and playing?
It'll only be 2 hours. They said it's like 3 almost. Anyway, you know what we're playing. It's Zelda.
I'm working on Rise of 3.
I'm not playing Zelda.
Actually, I finished Xenoblade 3. I made my way through my New Game Plus run, so I am now dedicating the next 5 years of my life to the Breath of the Wild sequel. Because with just a weekend, I can tell I'm not going to get anywhere near finished. Also, that picture is glorious. I've never seen that in my life before, though.
No, I'm still I'm going to go back and do more Xenoblade 3 because I've got five super bosses left to fight. But other than that, I beat Mega Man 5, and I'm probably going to be playing Zelda for a while because it's one of those games that I think of. It's now become the next game that I think about whenever I'm not playing it, and I'm just like, damn, between this and like Xenoblade 3, I have no other brain space left.
I'm not gonna lie, I did accidentally keep writing in like Zelda terminology on notes that I was doing throughout my day at work, and I was just like, oh, that's not the patient's name. No.
You're writing the log, the Puripad log or whatever. Yeah.
I'm waiting for my Zelda copy to come in, but once it does come in, I will be joining you. Right now, just playing with my 3D printer stuff.
Cool.
That's cool.
I booted up Rise of 3 again today, and it's a lot different than the first 2 games. So,
yeah.
I should also mention that I'm playing. I showed you guys a picture of my little Game Boy ROM thing. I don't remember what it's called.
Oh yeah,
the Miyu Mini.
Did you get a Miyu?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my brother got one too.
It is glorious. Xenosaga is on it. As much as I wanted to play it, I've actually been playing Mega Man on it. So
sweet,
yay.
More Mega Man.
More Mega Man. Yeah, I'm playing whatever the one that came out for Switch is. It's
11?
There's quite a few
Network?
on Switch.
Star Force?
Battle Network. Battle Network.
I mean,
Sorry,
Star Force Battle Network.
It's night. Brain shutting down. Yes, I've been playing Battle Network because I'm a dork. So yes,
Yeah.
Mega Man on this little device. I love it so much.
I will be playing Mega Man as well very soon. I'm currently trying to finish Trails from Zero. I made it to the final dungeon yesterday, so hopefully I can finish that this week and then jump into the Mega Man collection so I can finally play that.
Oh,
Nice.
That reminds
I
me.
don't have one of those.
I
Oh,
recently
what up?
finished Xeno 2, Final Fantasy
no
7.
way.
That's
That's
Oh.
Xeno 1. What are you talking about?
I'm gonna also say this. So speaking of games,
It's the chaotic Xeno 2, chaotic evil Xeno 2 is Final Fantasy.
so there's another game that came out recently that's gonna get lost in the shuffle. Dokapon. Dokapon Kingdom got a remaster, and that just came out. So my copy isn't in yet, but when it is in, I plan on doing a stream with a friend, and we're gonna play through that on Twitch.
I'd watch that.
Yeah, I can't wait for it. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Didn't Fuga 2 also just come out and also get completely overshadowed?
Yeah, Fuga?
Fuga
2? Yeah. Fuga 2 just came out.
Yup.
Yeah, that's gonna get overshadowed for sure. So, definitely take a look at Fuga 2. In fact, I need to buy that at some point, so.
Me too.
Yeah. Fuga 1 was on sale too recently on Steam.
Yeah, check out Fuga, guys. It's a pretty good game.
Mm-hmm. And I've also been playing Rise of 3, and I've been also juggling, like, Loop Hero was a game I've been playing to kind of, like, reset my mind after Future Redeemed, because it's really fun, though. And I've been playing the first Utoroe Ramono, and I want to vent about that, but I don't know who to vent about that to, so that's my problem. But it's okay.
Sound interesting to vent about.
It's an interesting game, but there's some things that I want to rant about. But that's for the Utoroe Ramono podcast that
doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
More knowledge, at least.
I got a question about Fuga. Is it set in the same world as Tail Concerto and Solata Romo?
Yes.
Okay, yes. I was thinking it was.
Yeah, it is the same world.
So it's Tail Concerto 4, right? No, I'm kidding. Anyway.
The franchise is called Little Bronx Tale, I believe.
That is not the name I expected, but okay.
Yeah, I think that's what it's called. I think it's what it's called. Hold on, let me look that up real quick. Little Bronx.
And while Justin is looking up this advertisemental piece, I just want to say, what is the lesson of Future Redeemed? Make sure you do not pick up glowing candy from the beach because bad things will happen.
Wash behind your ears.
Okay, so I got the name slightly wrong. It is Little Tail Bronx.
Oh.
Okay.
That kind of sounds worse.
Is it spelled tail like an animal tail, I'm guessing?
Yeah,
okay,
animal tail.
That's actually worse now. Wow.
It's animal. They're animal people.
Yeah.
I mean, not even that part. It just sounds a lot worse than the first one.
All right.
Fair.
Well,
like in terms of rolling off the tongue.
Okay. All right. We'll end there. Thanks everyone for listening, and thanks everyone for joining tonight. And have a good night.
All right.
Night.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
In front of a door that's been closed for so long, with your foreseeing eyes, what do you see? Until you open it, you cannot know. Afraid to see what could be on the other side. Oh, can't you see how much I feel the same as you? It seems we just need to let it all go free.
Save the game?
No, I've got 80 gigs left on this drive, so
okay.
I think we're okay.
Yeah. Unless we go super. No.
Yeah, unless
not
we
gonna
record
go that
for
long.
3 years. No.
I don't know. It could happen.
Listen, y'all. I got Hyrule to save. We got 2.5 hours, and then I'm cutting it off.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Okay.
I want to give
good.
my attention to this for now, and then I'll get back to Hyrule.
Don't ruin the game for me.
Spoiler, Hyrule?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have.
I'm gonna spoil you too. You play as Link.
I'm about to legend my Zelda.
But did you Zelda your legend?
We're about to lay into this entire Zelda.
Yes.
I mean, it's monolith. It's technically canon.
Yeah.
We still here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are.
What?
Hello.
Hello?
Hey.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Well, no.
I'm still picking up everything, so.
I'm hearing everyone.
I think they just can't hear us.
Hold on. Type to rejoin call. potentially, maybe that might fix the problem.
Mhm.
I think. 1 second.
Oh, y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
I'm gonna
you.
mute myself while I figure this out because I cannot hear y'all at all. So
What I did is I bumped my headset by accident.
Okay.
And I hear you.
We'll just let you rejoin her
My
fast.
print's done. Woohoo!
Woo. Hello,
Chris?
can you hear us?
yeah, we're good now.
Okay.
Oh,
cool.
good.
Cool.
I
Weird.
really
So-
thought my internet went out. I was like, "Ooh, they got me." Okay.
Oh no! Don't worry. We heard you.
But
Okay, good job.